All right. Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting of May 5th, 2022. The time is now 7 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting to order. All members are present with the exception of Ms. Naborski, who should be here shortly. All right. I would like to start with our consent agenda. All items are considered to be routine and will be acted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Any questions, comments? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Moved by Stacy.
Second by Catherine.
Moved by Stacy, seconded by Catherine. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, and I'll start with communications. Reports from our student representatives. Do we have any of our students here today?
They might be at the play.
They might be at the play tonight. Okay. I didn't hear from them, though, so.
So they would tell you that there's a play going on tonight.
That is true. That is true. Okay, so if they do come back, we'll circle back. All right, we'll go to individual school committee comments. Does anyone have anything from the committee they'd like to share, Minnie?
So I had the opportunity to visit the school buildings this week with Susan, and thank you for taking the time out. It was a pleasure going to the buildings and meeting everyone there. I want to give a shout out to all the teachers for their hard work. I would like to make a special mention to Mrs. Curley's 5th grade United Arts effort. The video making with green screen was very interesting. Loved it. I met a kid who made an entire game using Scratch and Makey Makey. I got to see some robots in action in Miller as well. One of the things that interested me was to see the approach to math using regular and Montessori approach in Placentino. That was really great. Last but not the least, the construction ed class at high school has a project which is called Tiny House, where everything from procuring materials to literally nailing every board has been student driven. It's been going on for the last, I think, 4 years?
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Many of those students have gone through, and I got to meet some of the students and a leader as well, Ty, I believe, right? So it was wonderful, and I do urge everyone to go check it out. It's so cool. So, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Stacy?
Or just happy Teacher Appreciation Week.
Still no thunder.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, no, so
That's it? Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. I would just like to share the same. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. I also wanted to thank the Select Board for approving additional ARPA funds for our revenue loss of $100,000. Thank you very much. And I also wanted to let you all know that I met with the Board of Health this week, and they said that they were willing to run a vaccine clinic once emergency use authorization has been approved for our under 5. So we will look forward to that. Hopefully that will happen before the end of the school year. Okay. And does central administrators' comments have any comments for this evening?
We've been doing ours further down.
I know, I just didn't know if there was some.
Since I've been asked now, I will share that we are, Mr. Vinay has planned a special event that is on May 10th. It is the MARC, which is the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center. It's a presentation for parents, guardians, family, and friends. And it says, before the pandemic, screen use, anxiety, and social problems like bullying and fighting were top concerns for parents, guardians, schools. During the past 2 years of the pandemic, some of the issues have become more challenging. So the MARC Center is going to do a presentation for parents, staff is welcome as well, but via Zoom. And I will be sending this out hopefully tomorrow in my end of the week update as well for May 10th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. on Zoom.
Okay.
And there are some flyers on the table if you're exiting and you want to grab a flyer to share with people as well.
All right. Great. And I'll hold yours to that other section after the central office updates, if that's okay. Great, okay. All right, so we'll move on to presentations, and I have a few people here for the Placentino Garden presentation. Hi, there they are. Sure. I'm trying to figure out a spot for you guys to.
Oh, no.
Yeah, come over the corner, okay.
I can just stand here.
I can move to.
Good evening.
Just find another- there's another chair.
My name is Kasia Snyder, and I am a Holliston mom. I have one child at Miller, Tristan, and another child at Placentino, Ava, in kindergarten. And together with my friend, Teresa, we came here to present to you our idea for the beautification of the San Placentino Elementary inner courtyard. We have been working on this project for quite some time, and we are also joined by Joanna Gannon and Jen Peterson, two other moms who are also involved in brainstorming this project. The reason why we're here today is because on Monday, we presented this project, we pitched this project to the ARPA committee, and they asked us to come here and seek your approval to move forward with this project. They just wanted to know that this forum was informed and liked the idea, and that we could go ahead. Would you like to add anything?
I'll just introduce myself, Teresa Marlar. I have 4 children, and they've all gone through Placentino already. I have a couple at Miller and one at the middle school. And Kasia and I are both passionate about gardening, so this is our thing. We're excited to present this.
So why a school garden? When we were thinking about the goals of the space, we were thinking that there are really 3 fundamental goals that we would achieve with this project. One would be learning. So we believe that the inner courtyard, if it was spruced up and made beautiful and had outdoor learning spaces, would provide an active hands-on learning and observation space where plants, insects, birds, and weather all become participants in the learning process for our kids. And we are also thinking of putting like a nameplates on everything we would plant there so that the kids would learn, the names and what things are. We know that the teachers there are already using this space, and we think that it can just be better prepared for the classes. Number 2, mental and emotional health. I think that it is a pretty easy argument to make that most of us, if not all of us, go out and spend time outside, move and enjoy nature in order to enhance our emotional and mental well-being. And we know that time in nature and playing outside for our kids will equal less anxiety, depression, better stress management, and that especially in relation to the pandemic era. And number 3, physical health. Obviously the kids would get a chance to go outside and play actively and learn outside. And that would also contribute to alleviating the spread of COVID-19 or other viruses. So if you dream up an outdoor learning space for kids, all of you, what do you imagine?
Is this audience participation? Or are you allowed to?
I'm just giving you an opportunity to imagine an outdoor learning space.
Flowers, trees, benches.
I bet that these are the images, right?
Yeah.
Flowers and some space to play and kids actively involved, maybe, harvesting something or planting something. Generally, that is the idea I would have for the outdoor playing space. Meanwhile, so what do our children right now at Placentino see was what I saw in June when I went there to test my child for learning. So this is the inner courtyard, and this is the area that the science teacher right now is using for their spring bulb beds. And she's really attached to this whole idea of having her tulips there planted with the students. She even asked us whether, if this is removed, whether the bulbs will still be there. So she really loves that aspect of, planting flower bulbs with the students. So, but that's where she's doing it right now. Next one, please. This is a little corner here, and the science teacher, as you can see, dug up this patch of grass, and this is where she's trying to grow peas to show the kids, to have another lesson with the kids. Next, please. There is a picnic table, but there is only one for the entire school. And this is a little broken bird bath that the Montessori teacher brought here on her own initiative. And then you can see, like some flower beds there and right here. And that's essentially, the space that the kids have at their disposal. And I was sitting there waiting for my daughter to be assessed by the specialist, for the reading specialist, and I was thinking, wow, this space has so much potential. I mean, this could be such an amazing outdoor classroom for the kids. And I was wondering, is there anything I could do? My husband, he's the let's do it kind of guy. He said, let's just take a shovel, go in there, and let's plant something. It doesn't work this way. Next, please. So our vision for this space. We, Teresa and I, went in there, and then we spent some time imagining the space. We took the photographs, and then I did these visualizations in watercolors of what it could be. So for instance, this is the library, the tall windows, and then the smaller ones. And we imagined that we could put in here like a scratch and sniff garden with herbs and lavender, basil, oregano, basically like something that the kids could pick and smell and experience. And then here, we imagined kind of a splash of color, a butterfly garden, and there is a little tree. This tree was planted in memory of a little boy who passed away, and we contacted his family, and his mom is very excited about a prospect of replacing this tree if we can, and she is ready to help. Also, she just would like the plaque to stay there. So that is one kind of rendering. Next, please. In this space, we think that it would be really nice to have an outdoor classroom where, we know that the teachers, as it is already, are taking the kids out there to read. Or to, have a discussion, and the kids sit in the grass. We think that we could create like a little hedge here and an outdoor classroom with benches, and a shade garden in this area. It's very shaded. But these windows here, these are the windows to the classroom of the Montessori teachers, who are also the Green Club, Green Group committee in the school. And this teacher is the one who is really into birds and bird baths. And she said that her kids love to watch the birds, and that she would be a steward of this particular corner there. And there is like a little feature here, how we imagine this feature. Next. So this is this spring bulb garden bed, and here we would imagine colorful azaleas, because right now, they're in bloom and the kids are still in school. And I just, we can see kind of a splash of like a rainbow color with different colors as the background. And the front of the bed would be basically ready for the science teacher to plant tulips, daffodils, crocuses, and other things. And here in the back, this would be the corner, which would just be kind of experimental. We're not aiming at producing any food for, people to eat, but the teacher would have like a proper space, for instance, for those pea plantings or Three Sisters or something that they wanted the kids to experience and to see and to tend to. There was a request for a sandbox, but we're not entirely convinced about that. I put it in there so it's in the presentation, but I think we're kind of not sure about this feature. Next, please. And here we imagine, enlarging this area, putting the wood chips down and having 4 picnic tables. That would be another outdoor classroom or outdoor lunch space. And then sprucing up these existing beds. So these just need revitalized. There's one here, there's one here. And this one we would kind of create from scratch, but it's not very demanding. So, yeah. And that's just the bird's eye view of the plan that we made, just so that you can see that there is kind of a plan like this. Mm-hmm. And what are people saying? So we've been in conversation with a lot of stakeholders and people and friends and moms, and we just pulled up a couple of quotations here. Look, this is not appearing. It's on my computer, but so as I mentioned, the teachers say the students love watching the birds outside the classroom window. Another person there said, "Oh, we would love to use a space for digging." Oh, there you go. That must have been
Click on it.
yeah. Having a proper garden for planting would be amazing. There is, that's fine. One parent said that the outdoor space, the school indoors already has great sensory facilities, but this will only enrich their experience. And that sensory enriching space outside is important, and she would really welcome it. Another teacher said that the kindergarten classroom would really enjoy reading stories in the outdoor classroom. So generally, everywhere we went, whomever we talked to, people were excited and positive about it. And I think I'm going to leave it here for you to take over, and then I'll sum up at the end.
Okay. So we went through who benefits from this garden. Obviously, the students would. So the elementary science teacher, I just want to remind people that it's not just for Placentino, even though they use that courtyard. The science teachers also teach the Miller students when they go out there. The Green Committee, which is the Montessori teachers, use that space extensively. Extended Day and Summer Oasis are out there. Extended Day uses that. I don't think they use it every day, but they're out there very often. And then Summer Oasis uses that spot too. So it's not just Placentino students that would be using this. It would also be Miller. And then staff and administration. Some of the staff members mentioned they were like, "Oh, I'd like to go out there and just have lunch or just hang out." So. Volunteers that are willing to help. So we've solicited a lot of help already. The PTO, right now they're waiting to vote on how much they would be able to contribute to us, but we're looking for them to provide ongoing funding on an annual basis to maintain this. We have a landscaper who is already committed to giving us some labor, some free labor for this, but we're reaching out to a number of other local businesses. Peas, Love, and Parsley, which is a great business right here in town, lovely ladies have started that. They're donating some labor. Holliston Community Farm has reached out, and they will give us lots of plants. They'll give us pretty much anything that they have that we could use. Holliston Garden Club has also committed, or, we're reaching out to them, we're in conversations with them. Again, the teachers have committed. The two higher maintenance areas of the space that we've designed are the shady nook over by the outdoor classroom, and then the science area. And those teachers are committing to maintain those spaces because those are higher maintenance. And pretty much everything else that we've designed into here is low maintenance. It won't ever have to be watered, really. It won't really need to be maintained. It'll just need like a once a year kind of brush up, adding some more wood chips and things like that, maybe a few trimmings. Holliston community. So we're hoping to reach out to folks and ask people to come in and help on planting days or when we're doing some of our work. Weston Nurseries is going to give us some discounts as well as Lowe's. The Holliston High School Green Club, we've had conversations with them, and they would love to come and just give us their labor, which is the biggest thing that we need. And then the 8th grade service day, I know we've been in conversation with Mr. Jordan about leveraging some of those students to do some of our work. So finances, how much would a space like this cost if you need to revitalize it? We put together a very detailed estimate. We interviewed a number of professionals, landscapers, Peace, Love, and Parsley, a lot of folks, and we itemized our budget for everything that we asked for when we came out to $18,000. Other funding sources, we've listed a few here. So our shortfall comes out to 14, and we're asking ARPA for that money. This is our initial plan. We were hoping to finish our planning in May to begin building our beds, and then in June having a community planting day. And then some of the items that we would have to order based on when they come in, like benches and picnic tables, installing those later in the year.
Right, so in summary, we're just bringing this idea to you for your blessing. We're here to answer questions, but we truly believe that this would be a great place to learn, to play, to grow. And that would enrich the kids in so many ways, including mental health benefits, alleviating the spread of COVID-19, and making them just happy and playing outside, learning outside. And we truly, firmly are convinced that they really deserve that space to be fun and beautiful for them. And we think we can do it, but we need your help and blessing and guidance to take this forward. So, yeah, if you have any questions, we can take them now.
We just have a couple of minutes for questions, so it's okay because we have other presentations tonight. Does anybody have any questions for tonight? Because I know that I know I was just squeezing you in for tonight, so no one else saw this before right now. So we may need to, if nobody has any questions right now, we might have to just write those down and then either have you come back, or we could kind of go back and forth through.
Yeah, well, thank you so much then for accommodating us and letting us.
I was glad to see it. You have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment. Teresa and I talked about this, I think, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to see something like this for so long. I was hoping that we would all just naturally gravitate towards more outdoor classroom space after COVID, and I'm so psyched that you guys are doing this. I mean, we'll have to, dig into the details and ask more specific questions, but thank you so much for doing this. It's just is beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
This is just the presentation.
Oh, I did have one comment, though. I do want to make sure that it's set up in a way that I know you mentioned Miller kids and the science teachers, but I would definitely, for a project this size, I would definitely want it to be as accessible to the Miller kids as to the Placentino kids.
The only thing I can say is I don't know if they'd have time to get out there, so I don't want to overpromise. I guess.
Well, phase 2, they're just coming to Miller and just creating.
I just wanted to say that we did talk with both principals initially, but Teresa and I, we just want to do the first step, and chew what we feel we can chew. What's the saying? Yeah.
Don't bite off more.
Right.
Yes, got it.
And then, obviously, if that's a success and we have a track record and a network develop and so on, and your good graces, then we can move on.
Okay. Minnie and then Catherine.
Yeah, so a quick question. Do you have a price on annual maintenance of this garden every year?
It shouldn't be very much at all. The PTO is looking at a dollar amount that they are considering contributing to this. It's in the $500 range, and that would be more than enough. It would just be a couple yards of wood chips to top off the wood chips, because those are going to scatter or get put around. And then really it's just, other than replacing an occasional plant that maybe didn't make it, it would just be labor of coming through and maybe weeding or pulling some stuff out. But we did a lot of research into the plants going into this space, and all of them are very easy plants. Like the mint garden that we have, the mint will escape from there, and that's fantastic because it's going to go into the grass. The grass could use some help, and you can mow right over it. It smells fantastic, and it just keeps going, and it's green. So we're hoping this is just going to kind of sort of take care of itself. It really shouldn't need very much going on an annual basis.
Catherine, go ahead.
So similar to your 5 years ago discussion, well before COVID, before I was even considering school committee, I had been working with one of the teachers at Miller to write grants for them to spruce up their middle space, and that was going to be part of their service project learning type of stuff for the 5th grade. So I know there's grants out there, and they're not huge, but it doesn't sound like you need a lot of money, but in terms of maintenance over the years. But I also know that there's an interest, certainly from some of the teachers, and I think it's hard to argue against outdoor space. I think it would look different at Miller. I know they were looking more at like a Zen garden, a place to go and be calm. So probably not a sandbox or, jump, hopscotch or things like that. But of course it would look different at Miller. So I love the idea. The mental health literature around being outside is extensive. Yes. And I mean, I'll stop there, but there's so much. So I love that this is happening. I'd love to see it happen. That space is perfect for Placentino. It's closed in, nobody's gonna run away while you're having story time.
Well, you never know.
Well, I mean, they might try. My kid would try. My kid would be the one.
The one thing that we're asking for is just the upfront to get the garden going, and then it should really just take off, and then we'll, if it's successful and we want to continue, we'll move on to the Miller. And I know I had signed up to help out with that project, and then all because of COVID.
Right.
Right, well, thank you so much for presenting at short notice to come. So, I'm sorry, Amanda, did you have something?
I just want to ask one more quick thing.
Sorry.
So it sounds like you have it all planned out with the labor and who's in charge. So I just want to make sure this isn't going to increase the workload for our custodians. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
It shouldn't at all. See, the only spaces that need some extra attention, we already have teachers committing to look at that. And for the vegetable garden, we've already budgeted in for a watering system, on a timer. So Julie Day and Denise Irving both, they like to have the students water, so they can shut it off if they want the students themselves watering, but then they can just have it water so that plants keep going.
Thank you so much for putting this all together.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, just have one more thought. Your list of people you've already talked to, I don't know if you talked to the Green Commission, but I know that there's a way to do catch barrels and, instead of turning water on and turning water off, that there's a way to do these.
So we considered rain barrels. We looked into it, but rain barrels take a little more work than we wanted to put on anybody, because they can build up, they need to be emptied out, they need to be cleaned out properly at the end of the year and turned over so that there isn't fungus or mold.
Yeah, so I just meant that maybe contact them and think about different ways to make it sustainable during the summer when there's not a lot of people around, that because they'll have some
Summer
ideas for you
Oasis
too.
uses that space.
Yeah.
And the only high maintenance area is the vegetable garden. And once the teacher is done with her learning, Summer Oasis has said they would love to use that space too. So it's on them if they want to water it and use it or not. So we're not worried about watering during the summer at all. Everything should just flow.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you. All right. I am just wanting to let people know that I'm deliberately holding our public comment just until after our presentations. I think that if there's anybody that's here, they might want to have something to say about the presentation. So we will move on to strategic plan.
I'm here with my team
And
tonight.
okay.
This is actually 1/3 of our team that worked on the strategic plan. We had 21 volunteers working on this between central office, building administration, parents, school committee members, and we also had our town administrator, Travis Ahern, who's behind us. We had our select board chair, Tina Hine, behind us. So they are here tonight. I'll introduce the rest of the team here, but I wanted to point out Mr. Lee and Dr. Scott Borstel are behind us as well. They are two of our Teaching and Learning Alliance members that facilitated this process, so we're grateful for all their support. And tonight I have presenting for me, not with me, I'm going to let them take over in a minute. We have Amanda Bigelow, who is our school committee representative, one of. We have David Jordan, our middle school principal, Nicole Bottomley, our high school principal, Barbara Ryan, one of our parent reps, Jenny Mann is our literacy and social studies specialist at Pre-K2 Placentino, and we have our wonderful high school student, Jocelyn Brown, presenting for our student voice today. So this has been the culmination of many months of work. When I first arrived as your interim superintendent, hard to believe, almost 2 years ago, and I was asked shortly after my arrival, what is my vision for Holliston Public Schools? And my answer was, it's not my vision. It is the community's vision. What do we want to grow this district into? This is a great district, but I believe there are opportunities to be even better and have our students have an even better experience as they travel, starting at Placentino with these lovely gardens, and throughout pre-K to 12 plus, I can just envision a lot more opportunities for students and a lot more equity along the way. So I'm going to since I always talk too much, I asked my team to take over, and they're going to take turns presenting for us tonight.
All right, so can I get started?
Yes.
Okay, so to talk a little bit about where this all came from, it came from because that's, how you have it as a school system. You have strategic plans for 5 years, and ours was due to expire in 2022, so it's time for a new plan. Also, one of the reasons behind this is a lot of things have changed since 2017, and probably our priorities have changed. And, we have a new superintendent that we're so happy for. So we were really excited to get started on this and think about the vision for the Holliston Public Schools over the next 5 years. So even though the committee was made up of so many different folks from different aspects of the school community, we really based the strategic plan on the voices of all stakeholders from the community. So the very first thing that was done, even before we as a committee were assembled, was data collection. So they reached out to volunteers to see who wanted to be on the committee. That was us. But also they held focus groups. Remember, school committee members, we had that focus group in the library where we talked about what did we think were the strengths, the needs. They had one with Holliston Public Schools teachers. They had one with Holliston Public Schools parents, or maybe a few with parents. I think one with administrators as well.
And we had some of our community representatives, our municipal workers as well.
Okay, yeah, municipal workers. So everyone from basically all communities of stakeholders was invited to share input that way. And then there was an extensive survey that was given out to the community. Over 1,100 folks responded to that. And then we started meeting as a group. And one of the things we did as a group was in different subcommittees, we examined that data extensively. So we had a group that looked primarily at the data from the focus groups. I was part of a group that looked primarily at the comments from that survey, and we organized those comments and coded them according to priority level and looked extensively at that. Other folks looked at the numerical data from the survey. We all came together and we really based our work on data from everyone in the community. And so then the committee met for like 6 3-hour nighttime meetings, supervised and facilitated by the folks from TLA, and we took it from there. We took it out of the data. So the process, phase 1 was sort of what I talked about, was building the foundation, was sort of this data process, but also sort of inspiring us to think about why we were doing this work, to think about the most important things to come out of all that data and come out of everyone's ideas, to think about why are we here, what are the main goals, the main parts of our vision that we want to see implemented in all these different ways. And then phase 2 was throughout the year. So our first meeting was, I believe, the end of September, and we just finished up in April, was thinking about how to use all of these ideas and all of this data to condense it into the plan. And when you hear more about the plan, you're going to hear about sort of the overarching goals, but also the specific strategic initiatives that are the things that we will do, the things that we will put into place in order to achieve these goals throughout the next 5 years. And then phase 3 is what we're just embarking upon, which is the 5-year implementation of the plan, which is really seeing these initiatives through to ensure that these goals that the community came up with are being met.
As Amanda talked a little bit about, is in these various kind of groups that we had, whether we were part of our larger group or in our subgroups, and we started to look at a lot of this data and speak as a group, I was amazed and it was humbling to see the common themes or common desires that came out as far as the purpose that we want for the town of Holliston and for the Holliston Public Schools. What came out clear in the data, but also in our conversations, is this sense of community within Holliston. We're not trying to be somebody that we're not. We're not trying to be these surrounding towns that we are. We're trying to be Holliston. It took a choice for families to choose Holliston, to drive through Hopkinton, to drive through Ashland, to drive through Medfield and different towns to be here. It's because families made a choice for something that was unique and different, whether that was Montessori, whether that was French immersion, whether that was the unique way that we support special needs, special education here in the district, or if it's just kind of the difference that the town of Holliston provides. As you notice, as far as this is kind of distilled down to kind of an overarching purpose or why or how we think about things. Oftentimes when you look at missions and visions, core values, there are a lot of words. And sometimes when you look at different districts, you see some of the same language that's there. But something that is very kind of uniquely Holliston is this idea of embark on your journey, personal, local, global. And it is this idea of kind of this deep look at courage as a student, resilience, perseverance, the critical thinking skills that the personal child needs and requires. But also even kind of on a local level, that the empathy that we go into, like our sense of citizenship, sense of purpose within a community, our ability to perspective take, our ability to develop kindness with our sense of community, but also on a global level, that global citizenship, these ideas in this world that exists outside of Holliston, and our ability to embrace all. that make us, I believe, unique here as a Holliston community. But as you see here within these core values, what we value is something that I see very unique and powerful as a community here in Holliston. So a theory of action, this is kind of what we're saying is kind of an if-then statement. So if we foster a safe and supportive learning environment, ensure consistent and effective communication among all constituents, provide rigorous opportunities for innovative teaching and learning, and attract and retain talent, then we will have an inclusive environment which empowers all learners to be lifelong, active, and global citizens. So this is kind of your implementation theory of action. And if you notice on the far right, it focuses, those are the kind of the yellow dots on the far right, are focusing on students as your starting place. And if you think back to what Amanda explained as far as the number of respondents we even had in our survey, that was over 1,100 students or 1,100 respondents within the community. Nearly or over about 600 of those were students that were responding to that. So their voice and what they're claiming and stating as what their needs are, that was an exceptionally high number of students responding to kind of explain their voice. And that the power of, and what we've done as educators, we've done in the community to say that, like, to empower our students to take the time to complete a survey like that and to empower their voice, and for us to then to distill that down and create a strategic plan based off that voice, I think is something that's unique to us in Holliston, and this is kind of goes through that component.
So once the mission, core values, and vision were created, we continued looking at the data to see different categories, and we have the theme of arches, so different arches for Holliston that really would be able to guide us over the next 5 years. And we wanted those arches to be specific enough that really it gave us good direction for how to move forward and implement change, but we also wanted them to be fluid enough to recognize that this is a 5-year plan. So 2 to 3 years ago, we would not have predicted a pandemic, right? And so we want to make sure that, and hopefully that's it, but we want to make sure that the categories are broad enough to allow for the changes and adjustments as we learn and move forward and meet the needs of the students in front of us, but specific enough that we really can say, okay, here are the action steps we're going to take, and here are the outcomes that we're hoping to gain. So after we created the mission, core values, and vision that came out of the data, we continued looking at the data to find those common themes that emerged. And there were a couple of different groups that looked at school and community feedback, teaching and learning, as well as finance, capital, technology, and personnel. We looked at where the overlap was, we looked at the common themes, and we also looked at our current strategic plan that is just ending now to see where there was some commonality, and there actually was a good amount of commonality between what we have been working on for the last several years, as well as the feedback and data that was coming from multiple sources in terms of creating arches as we move forward. So those arches, or those categories, include initiatives, outcomes, timeline, and responsibility. As we move forward with our 4 arches, the first one was communication, really between all groups, and that's two-way communication, right? That exchange between different groups, whether it's parents and guardians and students, educators in the district, administrators, the town as a whole. Our second arch was social and emotional well-being, and that really is the safe and supportive learning environment for all learners. We've been talking a lot about that this year, and we'll continue as we move forward. Our third arch was teaching and learning. Collaborative learning spaces and instructional creativity were really a big focus that came out in the data. And then our fourth one, talent and resources, and that really encompasses high caliber, diverse staff, personalized learning experiences or learning environments, and then financial support moving forward. So those were our categories in order to really ensure the outcomes that we're hoping for as we move along.
Hi. I'd like to thank Dr. Kuska and fellow committee members for having me as a parent representative, and thanks for having me this evening. To break down the first communication practices, that arch, what that really says up there as it's broken down is communication channels, the current web presence, social media presence, as well as email. Again, creating voice and value in that voice, those bidirectional, like Ms. Bottomley had mentioned. I think inclusivity in our communications is going to be very important, culturally competent and inclusive. Clarity. Some things are better left said very quickly and tightly versus going on and on and on. So how does that impact the receiver of information? I think really exciting to me as a new family, I feel like I moved here again, although we arrived in 2019, an onboarding process. How do we communicate with parents? How do we have them access information to the school versus go here, click on something, that was my experience, and then fill this all out. And really, what does that mean for welcoming families, guardians, and students? How do we make a more robust communication tool and environment to access? And last, I think we live in this world of governance. What does that mean? Privacy, acceptable use, et cetera. So that will also be part of this arch. The next arch is social and emotional well-being. Certainly, we've talked a lot about this, appreciated your support, certainly in even the hiring of Mr. Vernay. And what does this mean as far as the arch? Develop services and sustain current services. So all those good things that have been happening in our school district, how do we amplify those? And what does that mean in these different tiers? Second is enrich positive behavioral interactions and support. Really excited about these peer leader programs. Again, at the high school level, there are opportunities that are created for our high school students, but how do we go to the next level? What are those opportunities and programs that we can enrich and or bring in? And then using that lens of equity in everything that we do, and developing action steps based in data. Not just it's a nice thing to do, not just in platitudes and words. We want to create safe, supportive learning environments. How do we do that? How does data drive that? And I think, though, that really supports the social and emotional well-being pre-K through 12 plus. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to speak with you this evening about Arches 3 and 4. So Arch 3 is focused on teaching and learning, a big reason why we're all here. And so this encompasses several different pieces. So examining curriculum needs, pre-K to 12 plus, to ensure both vertical and state alignment. A lot of what I'll say you'll probably have heard echoed from other members tonight. So really taking that lens of equity and inclusion and diversity and, looking for any forms of bias throughout our curriculum. Already beginning the process of engaging in an equity audit, examining all of our, very unique course offerings that we have here in Holliston, including traditional French immersion, Montessori, the special ed continuums, block scheduling, school start times, sort of all of those different components and how those can look at the different levels. We've already begun the process of a curriculum review under Mrs. Menard, which has been a really exciting process that I've gotten to take part in and will continue in the years to come. Creating a sustainable professional development plan, so doing some long-term planning to ensure that teachers have access to really meaningful and rigorous professional development to help them grow as professionals. Looking at our vision of a graduate, which was developed several years ago and currently is primarily discussed and known at the upper levels. So really making sure that our younger students understand what those different components of vision of a graduate look like and thinking about how we can sort of embody those different principles with all of our students, regardless of the age. And then looking at district practices around our use of data. So thinking about how that can inform teaching and learning, help us to identify trends, and so forth. And then finally, Arch 4, talent and resources. So of course, in order to accomplish all of which we've spoken about this evening, we will need to continue to recruit and retain, highly qualified staff, including underrepresented populations. streamlining the onboarding process for new staff, as well as the orientation process, the new mentoring program, clearly communicating a 5-year capital plan in order to address the facility needs of all buildings, as well as some long-term personnel planning. And then finally, considering the Massachusetts evaluation system and how that promotes growth in student learning, provides both educators and administrators with feedback for improvement, and really builds capacity and support for us to improve student outcomes in a safe, inclusive environment through innovative teaching and learning. And finally, enhancing school climate and culture in order to boost morale and establish a more positive environment.
So coming back to the kind of the foundation of everything, while we were designing the plan, I think we were using a lens of equity. It's defined in the Holliston Public Schools as an intentional, systematic approach that ensures successful outcomes and experiences focused on academic, social, and emotional well-being for every individual of our Holliston school community. And I think we really wanted to focus on that. It's so important. And if you look at the next slide, we have a nice graphic to really exemplify why it's something that's relevant. I think as we move forward with the strategic plan, achieving equity is definitely a goal to have, and by the next strategic plan, we hopefully will reach the place where we can move towards this ideal of justice. I think as a student, equity as this foundation and really addressing the needs of every individual is something that will affect me and affects everyone in my community on every level. And that's kind of part of why I personally wanted to be part of the strategic planning committee. I knew there was a lot of conversations happening, and in the schools I've seen a lot of change, even in the few years I've been at the high school. And I wanted to be a part of that. There's a lot of good happening. It was really nice going over the strategic plan and seeing how far we've come looking at the old one and developing the new one. And so there's always room for improvement, and I think equity is a really good goal to aim for and something that's so important today that really defines Holliston.
If I recall, Josie, you're in 10th grade this year?
I am in 10th grade, so I've got 2 years of the strategic plan.
I'm glad we have someone that's not at the end of their career here yet, because I'm asking her to help hold us accountable for this work over the next couple of years as well. So I really wanted to take a time to just showcase our fabulous team. You know, as I mentioned, 7 of us are here at the table, but we have representation behind us, and it was an awesome experience to be part of, even though when we initiated this work, because I had started this thinking we were going away from the pandemic. If you recall, last spring I started vetting this process, and things were looking really good early in the summer, and we thought this is a great opportunity to start. And then we were getting overwhelmed to start the process. But we jumped in, and then it became very exciting, and I'm grateful to have had such a fabulous team to work with. So we're wearing our theme that we developed last summer, my central office team. We were trying to come up with a theme going into the new year. It was stressful because we didn't know how COVID was looking, but we wanted to try to have a positive lens. And my central office team came up with the, I'm not local to Holliston, but the 8 Arches Bridge, as all of us know, is a wonderful landmark in Holliston. And that got us to the thinking, as I started thinking of the Building Bridges to Equity theme. And we designed these T-shirts last summer. We had them made for all staff. And that's how, when we started the strategic planning process, and as you know, I've been sending out our Building Bridges Together theme on all our communications, because that's what I am striving for. But that kind of led to the arches, thinking, because this is a perfect connection to the work that we're doing, and I have other thoughts in my head. Maybe we'll be climbing the bridges together one year. Maybe we'll be crossing the bridges and hopefully just soaring bridges and sustaining by the end of the 5-year plan. So more to come on that.
Well, there is 8 arches.
This is a 5-year plan, but
Some years we'll have to do more than that.
But we want to really, again, connecting back to that theme, we're excited to move forward. We want to embark on the journey with you, personally, locally, and globally, and we're all here to answer questions. In addition to the 7 here, we have people behind us that will be happy to join, and at the front table there as well if you have questions specifically. But ultimately, we would like a vote of your approval to move forward with this plan, and then if and when we have that approval, TLA is now going to have this, although this current plan looks lovely, we're going to see a new and improved version with pictures of our students, and it's going to be live on the website and user-friendly, so this is really still going to be a draft form until we get that, but this is ready to go after that time.
Great. Fantastic. All right, we'll start with questions. Go ahead, Dawn. I think it was under number 4, talent and resources. You referenced a new mentoring program. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And that's really for anyone. What?
I would hit that one over. Joni, if you'd like to talk about it.
Sure. Jeriel, if you want to jump into. Jeriel and I are doing a lot of work together looking at not only how to recruit diverse staff, but also retain them and what that looks like. Jeriel has a lot of great connections within the state, and so we're really capitalizing and tapping into those and trying to get ideas that would pertain and work for Holliston, right? So we were brainstorming a lot of great suggestions. Just when was that, Jeriel? Maybe last week or the week before?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And we'll go from there and get a lot of input from a lot of the administrators. But we've just begun that work. We realize how important that is. Jenny talked about that. It's not just about getting them here, it's about retaining them, making everyone feel welcome, and that includes staff. So we need to take a hard look at what we need to do to change.
And if you recall, last year I introduced Holliston to the Mass Partnership for Diversity in Education, because I had partnered with them in my previous district. And last year I was representing us at the meetings. Thank you, Jeriel. I delegated it to Jeriel to do some of that work because I just needed someone to take that on for me, and I've been grateful for that. So last Saturday, Jeriel and I were at Milton Public Schools attending a diversity job fair, and we met some wonderful people looking for jobs in Holliston, many of them people of color a lot of them were looking for administrative positions, which we may or may not have, but we made connections, and we're excited that we're looking for any opportunity to bring new people and representation of our students, that role models that they can look up to that look like them and they can learn from. So that's a step in the right direction, but it is hard. The higher ed is not producing enough people going into the field, so we need to do something about how we grow our own students and encourage them that education is a great field to go into, because when I was going through school, I was discouraged from being a teacher, and it is a rewarding field, and we need to encourage that in our own students in the environment.
Just to speak to the current mentoring program, I went through it myself last year. This is my second year in the district. It's called our New Teacher Institute, and it's run by our 3 assistant principals, or 3 of our assistant principals. And it's a really wonderful, thorough, inclusive program and process. But as you've heard tonight, so much of our work and focus in the future is going to be looking through this equity lens. So just taking a look at what's already a really strong program and just making sure that it meets the needs of all staff, because of course teachers who are new, like myself, teachers who are new to Holliston may not necessarily be first-year teachers. The teachers, new staff are coming in with all different previous experiences. So just really fine-tuning what's already a really robust and helpful and welcoming program.
And what's really nice is that Dr. Kuska, Jeriel, and myself are all involved in Job Alikes, and this is a very hot topic of conversation. So we're really kind of going through this issue together with our peers at other school districts and trying to problem solve together. So you might see something in the future that, maybe we have to band together, districts have to band together to solve something. So we're really kind of all trying to figure that out right now. So.
Stacey, go ahead.
So first, I just wanted to say thank you all. I think I've worked with almost everyone except for Jenny, I think, on some sort of, screening committee or a plan. So I know what this, with the effort that it takes and I'm glad that you had that opportunity, and I really appreciate that. Nothing is more impressive, though, and we say this all the time, but to me, it's a little bit even more meaningful. Our students are so darn impressive, and I've known Josie since she was in 2nd grade, so it's like to see her and know her and see how she's grown up is a true testament to all that, you know, the entire district. So well done, and oh my goodness, you're so grown up. So impressive. The one comment I had, and I don't know that it necessarily fits into the strategic plan, but when I was reading through it, the column of responsibility sort of stood out to me. And there's no in here, and I know these are the point people for the section, but there was no responsibility for students, teachers, parents, community. And there may not be based on here, but it would be very interesting. What's our responsibility? What's our part of the process? And that may come in a later phase, but I just wanted to share that. But really well done. And just so you know, we were so impressed with the bridges that the Envisioning Future Holliston may or may not have borrowed a bridge to, that you may or may not see Monday night. So please take that as flattery that, you know, when you steal, it's flattery. So thanks, guys.
Hey, anybody else with questions?
Lisa, go ahead.
Just going down the line.
Yeah, sure.
I had a question about the Massachusetts system for evaluation. I can't remember which section that was in, but I'm not familiar with that.
Four.
She knows. She's all set.
Yeah, so DESE requires us to evaluate teachers and administrators, myself included, as you all know, are evaluating me as we speak. And then we are required to post to DESE the ratings for our teachers. None of the other confidential information, but the ratings for administrators and teachers go to DESE every year. And they provided us with a tool in rubrics to do that process a number of years ago, but Holliston, like many other districts, took their tool and tweaked it a little bit. It's pretty close to the Mass State exact version, but it has a couple of minor differences, and it's part of our collective bargaining agreement. So we do evaluate teachers already and administrators with that tool and those rubrics, and it's on Teach Point. So our thinking is not that we're going to be doing anything differently with it, but how we're going to do more professional development around how do we build capacity and give proactive feedback to help grow our educators. So it's going to be about calibrating the evaluation tool so that people are getting equitable feedback as well, because everybody has different styles of how they write things subjectively. We're trying to make it less subjective and more, what are the facts that we're going to be putting into evaluations, and how we're going to making sure that we're giving the teachers the right supports that they need and administrators the supports they need as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes, I knew pieces of that, but that's a great explanation that brings it all together. On culture and climate, that's such a broad term. I was kind of wondering just a little bit more about that, and hoping maybe some of the wellness stuff that I mentioned last time could fit into that. I think, you know, that there's a lot of room for, there's always room for kids to get more outside time and more physical activity and more, you know, just healthier everything. But I'm wondering I'd love to hear a little bit more about sort of the conversations around culture and climate and what we can do to improve.
Who would like to take that? Curiel, do you want to, not to put you on the spot, but she's going to.
Someone else. Wanted to jump in. Do you need me to come up forward?
I think if they can hear you on the mic, they might need you to.
Okay.
Right here. Or even up here and take my seat.
There, you can come right here.
Just trying to save us well. Tripping reports.
You want to get there?
You don't want to go in the center?
Hello, good evening, everyone. So what we mean by culture and climate is the climate and culture within our buildings. What that entails, what are the experiences like for our students? What are the experiences like for our educators? What are the experiences like for our families? One of the things we know about high-thriving schools and high-thriving districts is they have positive school climates and cultures, right? So when we think about climate and cultures, one of the things we want to get good at is not just talking about it, but actually thinking about how do we build that. One of the ways would be to start thinking about what is the right data to know, if the experiences that our students are having are the right ones, right? She mentioned it earlier when she was talking about data, right? When we talk about climate and culture, it's not just going to be this amorphous thing of like, it's, do we enjoy coming to school? We actually want to tangibly be able to say, is our climate and culture positive for our kids? Is it positive for our adults? And is it positive for our families just as well? If we can hit yeses on those, we also know that that comes with higher levels of achievement, right? So when we talk about climate and culture, when you see that with the strategic plan, that's what we mean, right? A would be around designing opportunities and experiences where students have voice, where students have agency, where they feel they're a part of the school, where we provide supports for our students, where we provide supports for our families, where we provide better onboarding for our families, where we provide better professional development for our educators, where our educators feel that they're part of the solutions. All of those things build the climate and culture that are effective for our schools. And the last piece I would say is that when we think about, it's been referenced not just here, but other nights, mental health, right? Coming out of the pandemic, we know that positive climate and cultures support positive mental health. Why? Because school is a happy place you enjoy to go, right? That's the kind of school we want to build for our students. And then also it even gets back to the piece around hiring and mentoring, right? We know that if we have a positive climate and culture, people want to come to Holliston, right? And people want to stay in Holliston. People don't leave positive climates. People don't leave positive cultures. So that's what we mean by that. It crosses all of the arches, and we believe that it would enhance every arch that we have.
To add to that, I would argue kind of the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey is a climate and culture survey. When you think about climate is like the weather, the temperature, how people are feeling, and your culture is like what are people doing like in the building. So you get, especially within the survey, you get questions about like that go to students about culture, about like, so that it's like, what are the students doing? What are the staff doing? These types of things. And then the climate is more like, how do you feel? Like what like that type of sense. So we have been doing, for example, like we did a climate and culture, climate survey at the middle school, but we've historically done one for probably for about the past decade in various iterations that matches to the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, and then you take action based off of what you've learned and apply different interventions that you would have among the school to try to improve that climate and that culture within the school.
There's one more. No, that's like. Well, it was actually just to follow up to that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So how do you measure climate and culture in younger kids who don't understand climate and culture?
It's a good question. I've experienced middle school and high school. That isn't throwing this one back.
Yeah, so I'll catch it. So most of the research validated climate and culture surveys do not go below third grade. Because there needs to be a cognitive piece to be able to answer the questions around, do I feel supported by the adults in my building, et cetera, things like that. But we had started engaging this year with Placentino around how could we get a measure of that, right? Maybe it could be thinking about student interviews, student conversations around how they experience school. I know this year as well, Dr. Kuska has had student groups where she's met with, right? So I think also you get a pulse of how things are going by engaging in authentic conversations with kids around their experiences, right? Around, do they enjoy coming to school? Kids are honest when you ask them that, right? But the reality is that we have well over 1,500 kids, right? So we also need a system to kind of get those experiences as well. I think that when we think about this, it's about developing a lot of different experiences to try to make sure that we have a handle on that climate and culture we want to build. And this work is also not about perfection. It's always tweaking. What can we always do better? Are there students in our building who we aren't meeting the needs, who don't feel connected? And if so, what do we do about that, right? This to me is always a strength-based approach. It's not about what are the problems. It's also about, if for whatever reason we find there are students who are not connected, or staff who don't feel connected, or families who don't feel connected, then what actions are we going to do to enhance that? And then continue to measure that and hopefully see growth as years go on.
And you heard a lot of people over there talking about data-driven decisions. So we would capture that data that Jeriel's talking about and have it in a data dashboard that we analyze as teams at various schools to then make informed decisions based on what our students are experiencing to go forward. And that would also be for curriculum and all of that also.
Just to add on what Jeriel said as well, I know, as he mentioned a few weeks ago, Dr. Kuska and Dr. Slaney had a small group of students in the library Placentino, and one of the best things, I'm biased because it's my building, but one of the best things about this age is that those, our kiddos will say anything and everything and are so often so open with their thoughts and feelings and experiences. And so I know the students who participated really enjoyed it, and I believe that there's intention to do more like that in the future. And of course, it's going to look a little bit different than it does at the upper levels, but really just engaging in those conversations with our youngest learners because they have a lot to say.
Well, I think I got more out of it than they did. It was the best day. But I've been in all 4 buildings with that. But Minnie and I were in the building the other day, and I was speaking with, I think it was a kindergarten class, and Vivian said, Dr. Kuska, I remember talking to you. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you're on my advisory. And she was so proud. I said, I'm going to be having another one of those. And she said, will I be coming again? I said, I think so. But there you go, from the mouths of babes. But that's like the highlight. It's like being with my grandchild. I can send him home, but I can have all the fun parts. So I know it's not like that every day, but I enjoy those experiences.
Just one more question.
Go ahead.
So a lot of this is very high level, and it's amazing. I think these are all, incredibly important goals, but I'm wondering sort of what's the next step in terms of when we get down to the nitty gritty, the outcomes, the timeline, the responsibility, for example, I just pulled up communication. So aligning and supporting communication platforms that include the voice of all stakeholders. So what do we do next? How do we get to the next step and figure out how are we going to measure it? And how are we going to?
So we're going to be starting in our retreat in August. The administrative team will be working on taking these higher level, you're right, this is the higher level, and what are the action steps and goals that we're going to be tying to these for next year. And then I will be tying my goals directly to that. The schools will be tying their school improvement plans, and the goals there will be directly connected. It's all together and all aligned. And Jenny and all of our other teachers will be aligning their goals. It doesn't mean they're going to take on all parts of it, but all teachers will have a lens of some connection to parts of these goals depending on what their job is. And that's how we hold each other accountable and align our work together and make sure it's going back to what we said we were going to do in the strategic plan for the 5 years. And then you'll be holding me accountable on my end as well.
Thank you.
Catherine, do you have anything more?
No, my questions were the culture and climate, so Lisa took my stuff.
No, we did talk a lot about culture and climate, to be very honest. We did not touch anything on, going outdoors, and I think that is something we probably missed, but everybody in the room missed that. But you did bring a very good point, and I think it ties in really well with the garden approach.
It does.
Right? So I think it's a work in progress. I'm guessing it doesn't have to be in exclusion of that at all. So it could be very well included in the whole environment.
And it was very strategic. What came in here came directly from the feedback we got, the focus groups we got, the data, the surveys. So just because that didn't come up doesn't mean we won't be doing work on that. It's just that we weren't going to add something that wasn't explicitly addressed through all the curriculum and teaching. Curriculum and learning was a big focus, and that's why you see a number of initiatives under that area. The last strategic plan did not articulate that in the way, so this one is very focused on how we're going to grow the rigor along with our safe and supportive schools. But I will tell you, Lisa, that I've had this on my radar, that I'm in the process of planning a wellness meeting for this year because we knew we didn't get to that. But you'll be hearing to just have at least one wellness meeting before we end the year to put together a timeline for that committee to work going into next year. So even though it's not explicit in here, it is part of safe and supportive schools, and we will be doing that.
Rest assured, too, it's embedded all throughout Massachusetts state standards, for wellness, science teachers, depending on what topic you're talking about with wellness. So it is something that we as a public school are responsible to teach those standards, so.
Well, I want to just
Thank you for all this incredible work. I'm thinking about our last strategic plan, and you guys reviewed over it. It was probably, 45 pages or something. It was a huge document, right? And I just feel like the difference between this document that is organized and concise and focused and gives like such a detailed map for you to where you can start and then grow from there. I'm so impressed with it. I really am. So thank you all for all this incredible work, and I really look forward to seeing what the next chapter is with the goals for this coming year. So thank you so much.
Before you vote, I didn't know if you had any questions for Scott or Ed, because they were very instrumental in the work that we did here, and we were grateful to have them as part of our team. I felt when I addressed that I would like to begin a new strategic plan, I felt it was important to bring someone from the outside in, because sometimes
Absolutely.
we can be too close to it when you're in, so to have someone neutral coming from the outside really helped to focus us as a group, and they helped to build consensus for us, which was still very, because we spent a lot of time on the vision and mission, and at one what did I call you, Scott, the next day, and I said, we're not going to get done, we have one more meeting. And then, even though we did get there with Scott and Ed, but I was still feeling like we didn't have the time to vet it, because we were so rushed to get to that point, because we spent so much time talking. So I did hold a 6th meeting when we just met as a team, and we went through all the strategic initiatives together, and then we took, I think, the 31 initiatives and narrowed them down to 21, because like you're saying, we felt that some of them could be combined, and we didn't want to make it even more overwhelming. We wanted to be as concise as possible, but we couldn't have done it without their help.
Thank you so much. Go ahead. I'm just curious, was there anything that jumped out at you about Holliston? What makes us unique, or what makes us special?
It's interesting, and I think Amanda can attest to this. We had a conversation. What we say on the first night is trust the process. It gets messy, but out of the messiness comes a much stronger product. And by the time we get to the end, you'll be where you want to be, so trust the process. I think your vision really resonated with us, and the strength of your mission. We're currently doing strategic planning. We've done 8 communities this year, and we are in the process right now of doing a somewhat close community that loved your mission so much that they said, well, can we just take the Holliston mission and make it our own? We said, no, you've got to go through the process. What we loved, and we did some reflection, who's not with us is Dr. Gary Maestas, who is the interim superintendent in Hingham, recently retired as a superintendent from Plymouth. And what we loved about this particular process is that you actually added a meaning of your own at the end. Our philosophy at Teaching and Learning Alliance is to guide you through the process, to build the structures and the tools and the protocols you need to be successful, but to make sure in the end it's your fingerprints as a community and not ours. So we work really hard to provide a structured, unstructured environment to do the work, which is what makes it messy. However, sometimes when you have that unstructure, the team isn't always exactly where they want to be in the end. You took it upon yourselves as a strategic planning committee to bring the group back together a 6th time outside of the process and look at this and say, well, there's a great piece here, but we don't think the work is finished yet. We've not yet seen anybody else do that. They've called us back. What happens is it was a condensed process because of COVID and the challenges that we've all been faced in school communities. And so Susan 2 times called me and said, do we need to add a meeting? Joni and I are worried that we're not going to get to be where we need to be. And I think Amanda actually articulated at one point, I don't know that I feel like the work is done yet, that we're not quite there yet. So you brought it back together on your own, and you created an even stronger product without us being there in that 6th meeting. And that's admirable, that you knew maybe you weren't where you wanted to be. We thought 31 was a lot of initiatives to do in a 5-year period, but we're not going to dictate that. The community had to dictate that based on data. And this group also stayed very true to the data. We say on that first night, and we say repeatedly through the process, you represent, as a committee of 22, you represent all of the constituents of your community. You're their voice because they're not sitting at the table. So make sure you are indeed representing their voice. And they stayed true to that throughout the process. They anchored their strategic initiatives in what the data actually said, and that's important. So you did a very nice job of that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So,
Would you like a motion?
I would like a motion
the
to-
strategic plan for 2022 through 2027, moved by Stacy.
Second by Dawn.
All in favor? And that carries.
personally, I'm very excited to embark on the journey just because, as you know, coming in COVID, it was certainly not an optimal time to be a superintendent in a new district, learning, not being able to develop relationships. I am excited to now be able to be the education leader that I've spent 27 years growing. I was at 15 years as a teacher, and this is my 12th year as an administrator, and this is a great opportunity to partner ourselves together for this work. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate the team I had.
I just want to add that as somebody who has just come in, it's my first year, it was an absolute pleasure to be a part of this process. I, of course, learned so much, but the fact that there was so much input from the community and it was a collective process that ended up in such a cohesive document, I think that is truly, it gives you, I can't recall a word right now which would be appropriate here, but I think that has been such a great pleasure to see it. It's like a baby you are seeing, and it really feels very happy. And I feel very happy about it.
May I say one more thing?
Sure, go right ahead.
Then I'll be quiet. You asked what we at TLA took away from this process. Was there anything that stood out? We have yet, in our 3 years of doing this work, collectively it's been 3 years. As individuals, we've been doing it for about 15. We've never had a response rate from the community and from students like you've had in Holliston. You had almost 1,200 responses. We've worked in major cities that haven't had that response rate. And you had almost 600, you actually had like 601 maybe students. So your plan is very reflective of, I call them your widgets. What do you make? You make great kids. And your widgets responded in masses.
Yeah.
And so what you have is a product that's a result of the kids living in your classrooms, PK through 12 plus.
So I had the pleasure of running all the forums, the public forums. So in a very short time, you really get a flavor for the community. And I will say that all of the positive things that I've heard about this community were really reflected through all of that representation. So I was really impressed. Sometimes you walk away with community, oh boy, they got some really, some serious issues here. But I think that the foundation here and some of the work that you've done and the ability to kind of move forward with that is very positive for Holliston. And the kind of commitment that people make in this district was very evident in, just a very short time. I really enjoy the forums because you'll learn a lot about a community in a couple of days. It's a great place, that I would feel comfortable with my own children being in. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is so nice.
That's a very nice endorsement, thank
I
you.
wanted to add one more thing. I've been in a lot of districts, and something I needed to say is that I was very excited to have representation from the town because it shows really the partnership the school district has with the town, because you don't see that in most districts, unfortunately. So it was a really positive experience to see that.
And thank you. We were lucky to have you.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you, team. Especially. All right.
Now the hard work begins.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just take a minute. Good night, thank you. Just take a minute. Everybody. No, we're still meeting, but you can go anytime you want.
Well, you know where to go.
They're like red t-shirts.
Hey, Robert, you're not here for a public comment tonight, are you?
There's extras on the table.
Are you here for public comment tonight?
Okay. Thank you for your work. How about that?
We'll take it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
I thought they were here for public comment. I'm like,
I did, that's why I was asking. I guess, maybe they just wanted to come to see the strategic plan. I'm glad to see that. They disappeared. They're coming back. What's that?
I told her she could have one.
Oh, yeah.
Take one if
I think I have one at home.
Thank you.
Sorry, we'll return in a moment. We're just clearing the room a little, letting people go home. Okay. Minnie, are you ready to come back to the table? We're still meeting, actually, so.
We get all the credit?
So this is your time to clear out, and then we're going to finish our meeting.
Sorry. Where did this magical gift come from? But at least for me.
Yes, you can have Lisa brought those.
Yes, that was really great, yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, we're missing Mr. Bidet. I guess we have to wait then.
No, I don't think.
We don't have to? Well, we're moving on to policy.
Bye, Jerry.
Bye, Jeriel, thank you.
I do need to have those up on the screen though, right?
Yeah, you do. Sorry. Okay. We're going to move on to policy in just a minute. Just have to plug that back in.
Do you want to skip down to the reports while I get that up?
Okay. Administrator reports. Do you want me to skip you and go to Joni right now?
Sorry, reports of the subcommittee. If we could
Oh
jump
my
down
gosh.
and if we-
Oh, you want me to go jump down to the reports of subcommittee? Okay. Do we want to just jump down to reports of subcommittee where she puts this together?
Sure.
Okay, so communications, you have a newsletter, so we'll talk about that after. Policy, we're going to do in a minute. Budget,
we
Lisa
met
just walked out.
yesterday,
Yep. Go ahead.
And, yes, we met yesterday.
We met yesterday.
I guess we'll discuss that when we get to budget too.
Yeah, we'll discuss that, yep. And then superintendent's evaluation.
So we are meeting as just the subcommittee, not with the superintendent, to take all of the rubrics and feedback and put together a final evaluation. So the subcommittee, just the three of us will be meeting on Wednesday, May 11th at 10 a.m. in the central office conference room.
Okay.
And then, so which, no, I was able to get us the conference room.
Okay, cool.
And then we will meet on Thursday, May 12th, with Dr. Kuska at, I think, noon, if I'm not mistaken, right? On the 12th? I think, you know what, I didn't write that on my calendar.
I'm lucky I know my own name.
I know. So please, team, now that you've seen the strategic plan, we really need those rubrics to us. You can have until Sunday night, because I won't be able to actually look at it until Monday after town
We have
meeting.
till after town meeting?
Well,
What about Tuesday by 3 o'clock?
There's no way I'm getting it done before the meeting.
Consolidate that in 24 hours.
Well, except, are
If
you
it's going to check off
consolidating it in
exemplary at that
advance?
point. Yeah,
Just put exemplary and just move on, I guess. Right?
do your best, people, do your best, people, Tuesday morning, if you can, please. I know, I too have, and it's Mother's Day this weekend, but I really am trying to, we got to get it done.
Yes.
So,
Okay, and I'm going to go back to budget. I don't have a specific, other than that, I didn't have a specific budget. Do you want to come back to budget? You want to come back to budget?
Yeah, well, we were gonna.
We're going to have a bigger discussion, but I don't, that was supposed to be the reports of subcommittee. We'll just come back to it.
But I don't see it on the agenda anymore.
Well, it's under budget. We have budget
Budget
reports from a
updates,
subcommittee. That's a report.
Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't have that, never mind. When the agenda went out, it's still,
Right,
okay.
we just did this yesterday.
Correct. Okay, so we're going to move on to policy then. Sorry, we're going to head back.
All right, so we have policy GBEBD, fundraising and solicitation, crowdfunding for third reading. The last meeting, I made the edits as you were giving them to me on the screen, so it should be ready for third reading. We didn't change anything as a committee since then.
No, because we did not meet.
Nope.
So if there aren't any questions, we can vote to actually waive the third reading
Yeah.
and approve it.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about it?
A motion to waive the third reading.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor? Okay, and that is adopted then. So adopting GBEBD, fundraising and solicitation, crowdfunding, as amended. Okay, we're good with that one. And then ECAF.
Yep, so ECAF
So that's this is our second reading. So we just had the first reading last week. And I don't know if we had, oh, yours is marked up. So when I looked online, mine was not marked up at all.
Here's what I found out, and I forgot to adjust this. So if you're not an editor, you don't see the live edits. That was the issue.
Edit access.
So I need to.
okay.
So, yeah, so you need to.
Send you a request to be an editor.
But it should just be when it's sent to us, it should be sent.
Right.
With
But
us
it's because
being
it's
an
linked to the
editor.
whole folder.
Oh, I see.
And we only link you when it's ready to go. So I
Okay.
can put you on this now
All
as,
right.
like I can change you to
Yeah,
editor.
I get it, okay.
So that was the issue.
Because I'm looking at it
because
going,
it's-
I was pretty sure.
Susan, if we are a commentator, even then we can't see the live edits?
Let's see.
Because sometimes I really kind of, don't want to.
I know, and that's why we don't want too many editors in there, because we don't
Yeah.
want things to
Right.
get
Right.
accidentally changed.
Yeah, I end
So-
up just putting spaces
I'm going
in
to
there.
put you as a commenter, and when you check, if you can check
Okay.
many, then that would be a better way
Can
to
you
go.
look right now and see if you can see it now as a commenter?
Because that's why, the reason we had you as viewers, if you're not in the subcommittee, we can't comment when you're not live, because then we'd be breaking open meeting law, so we try to avoid any possibility of that.
Okay.
So let me see if you show up.
You didn't change me.
He just put it in though.
No, I can't see.
You can't? Okay, so only if you're an editor. So that's why we'll have to remember to make people editors as, when we're ready to share it for the meeting. Like I said, we just don't want to make someone accidentally, when you have too many
Okay.
cooks in the
Right.
pot sometimes. And
Okay, so there was just,
So we did not meet again, and these are all the changes that Susan made last week when we were talking about it.
okay. So the only other question that I had about this was about access and a procedure, like whether we can put in here that there will be a procedure about the access and logging in. So we have some restrictions around who's seeing it. Just to, we already talked about how it's limited to the superintendent or your designee.
And we will give access to building principals at their own building for that
Yeah.
reason, though, because they would be the ones, they might not
Conducting
have the time to go
investigations.
to Mr. Bidet or myself, but then they would be the only ones that would have access
Okay.
for that reason.
Okay, and just so the committee knows, there was a conversation with the Finance Committee about our request, our capital request for the cameras, and one of their contingencies was that, which they had the same for when the police department requested to have cameras at the traffic lights, was to have a policy in place around the, just to protect the town from liability issues. So we need to have a approved policy in place in order for us to start installing the cameras for that. So that doesn't mean we have to do it right now. If we're not comfortable voting for it and waiving the third reading, then that's fine. But if, before we install them, we need to make sure that we have that in place.
And just to be clear, you mean this policy, right?
Yes.
Or do you mean we need to create another policy?
No, I mean this particular policy. Sorry.
That's how Mr. Boudet brought this to our attention, because it came up at Capitol, and that's
Yeah.
why we realized we didn't have that policy on
Right.
file, so that's why we put it in quicker than some of the others.
Just get laid for that?
You asked me, you sent me to
You
the
said we need
committee.
it, yeah.
You said, let's bring this to the committee, so I brought it forward to the policy. I know.
Okay, so
Yeah, that was in the policy already, what you just asked for, right, Sid?
I'm trying to remember, well, that's the thing, is I
This
couldn't
part
see
here, the
the.
last sentence, are you talking about?
So I have a
No, the superintendent or designee shall.
Ensure proper
yeah.
procedures, yes, okay, yep. Okay, Minnie, you got a question?
Yeah, so when it says superintendent may from time to time issue further guidance, would we need to vote on it, or you can just change it?
No.
No, because it wouldn't be part of policy. It would be more of a protocol. And, if guidance comes from DESI, then I would be able to enact that guidance. Similar like what we had it in the mass policy
Right.
too, because if
Yes.
it was changing so fast, then you don't want to lock that into policy for that
Do
reason.
we want to say procedural guidance, just to kind of,
That's a good idea.
just to kind of add
Yeah,
that?
add
Yeah,
that.
I see what you're saying, yeah. That nuance. Do you have something, John?
I do. If you could just go up after you make that change, I just want to look at the third
Highlight that, 'cause
paragraph.
I didn't put that as suggesting. So let me just
I can't see the edits yet, but there is.
Refresh.
You have to refresh.
You have to
the screen.
refresh.
Tried that and it didn't work.
Let me make sure I did take you. Yep, you're down there. I don't know. Sometimes there is a
Okay,
delay.
refresh again.
Yeah.
If I could see the third paragraph.
Third.
In pursuit of this objective. Did we cross out in pursuit of this objective? That's what I have for the third paragraph. Oh, there
Yes.
it is.
Mhm.
Okay. Post.
I think you get the fourth paragraph where it says the HPS district, you can just say Holliston Public Schools, and we just say HPS in parentheses and just leave it. Sorry, I hate to kind of do this changing on the fly, but
Yeah, but it's not.
it's still not
Yeah,
hugely
it's not.
substantive, but
Yeah, okay, nope, I'm good. The change was made, but I don't see
Okay.
her.
does anybody have any other comments?
Just a very small one.
Go ahead,
In the second to last sentence at the bottom of the paragraph there, it says,
You're on it.
after giving prior notice to the school superintendent or designee, it's just the only place where we refer to the school superintendent instead of just the
Oh,
superintendent.
I see, we can just say the
Take-
superintendent, just take
school
school
out.
superintendent, yeah, okay,
Just take the word school out.
I thought it was a little awkward too, honestly. I was just thinking, yeah.
true. Okay. We good? Anything else, Minnie?
Yeah, the school committee policy may be subject, is the second paragraph, I think it's third, 1, 2, 3, 4th.
So students or
Holliston
staff.
Public
yeah.
Schools, yeah. So is there a reason why you edited the will and changed it into may?
Yes, I remember what that thinking was. Just because a kid is caught on camera, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be punished. Like,
Right.
that's up to the subjection of the school administrator.
Okay.
Right.
We just wanted to have that be more ambiguous because it's not really our, as a policy committee's decision.
Okay.
Okay, are we good? All right, I would entertain a motion to approve policy ECAF, security cameras in schools, waiving the third reading.
Second,
You're on the motion, Minnie?
yeah.
Moved by Minnie,
Second.
seconded by Amanda. All in favor? And that carries. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then we're going to head back to you as soon as you're done, Susan, for your administrator update.
I think I'm good since I
Okay,
gave my one
you're
update.
good.
We had, last week you got an update. So.
Okay, Joni, do you have something you would like to update?
I do not.
All right. And now we will move to Mr. Boudet.
I got nothing.
Come on.
Do you have Leslie's presentation?
We're going to come back to you anyway. All right, so the next on our agenda is personnel. However, we have gotten some, legal counsel has given us some advice that this needs to be moved into an executive session discussion because it's about a leave of absence for a union member. So we are going to hold executive session briefly to review over of this and vote for it in executive session. It was just improperly, put in as a open session, which is what we, I guess, have been doing. But apparently, according to our legal counsel, we are not supposed to be doing that. So I apologize for the late notice of doing executive session after, but it will be brief. Okay? So I'm going to move that. All right. So we are going to head back to reports from subcommittees and talk about budget. And we had a meeting yesterday. Lisa, do you want to update us on where we're at with that?
Yeah, that slide, oh, that was fast.
Ooh.
Slide number 4. So this is just the presentation I did back in March, and I just updated this. So that looks like a lot of numbers, but all of that stuff at the top is the stuff that we've already voted on. So as you guys were, boop, boop, boop.
Oops.
Okay, so As you guys will remember, we had voted on an increase for FY23 of $1,905,791 over the previous fiscal year, which was a total of $39,004,314. That's what we voted in March, a 5.14% increase. The budget subcommittee met yesterday, and we talked through all the updated information, and we are now recommending a decrease from that to go to town meeting. We're taking out $159,035, and this is based on new information that's come in the interim, so some newly identified savings and staff attrition that we weren't expecting, some software savings that we weren't expecting, and then one less vocational, I think it's one fewer vocational student requiring tuition. I'm having a problem with less than fewer. So our new budget recommendation is $38,845,279, which would represent a 4.71% increase.
Over last year.
Over the previous fiscal year. So we kind of ended up, you know, in the middle, if you look at those top numbers that we were originally considering. And so this is just based on the new information. We thought that this was, you know, a fair way to balance out, you know, and this is also what Dr. Kuska and Mr. Boudet recommended. Do you guys have any questions? Concerns? So that's our recommendation to vote tonight. Can we vote tonight to make the change? So vote tonight so that we go into town meeting with this new slightly lower number.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Boudet or Dr. Kuska? I know we've been at this ad nauseum, so probably not. Okay. So I would like to entertain a motion to approve our budget request for $38,845,279, representing 4.71% increase over FY22. Do I have a motion?
Moved by Dawn.
Second.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Minnie. All in favor? That carries. Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for all your work, everybody on the budget subcommittee on this. Lisa and Phil, thank you. To get us there. Okay, we're going to move on to old business and talk about school start times. Who would like to start us off?
So I can start.
Amanda, go ahead.
I'm wondering how we can sort of shift the focus on the conversation for like, from sort of this ongoing argument about like, are they good, are they bad, and sort of reshift to like, what are the productive next steps we can do? So instead of us sort of having discussion about like, well, do the kids like get enough sleep or whatever, because I think it's sort of clear that like a lot of people are unhappy. And this is me being new to school committee that I don't really know what the protocol is, but like, is it time for us to establish a new kind of a task force, or a committee of like, or recruit some like other community members to go back to the idea that it's not on school committee again doing the work that you guys already did 3 years ago? So what's the, I guess what I'm asking is, what's the protocol for us asking for input from folks in the community, not a survey, but like saying, who wants to help us find solutions to this or look into stuff? Is that a terrible idea? Are we not there yet?
Mr. Boudet is like.
Again, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, what is a community member going to do?
So, I mean, the thing is, no one knows, like, no one in this room for sure, I certainly don't, no one has a better idea. The current plan, like what we're going to school in now, was the best idea. You chose the best idea. And people still aren't happy with the best idea. So, like, who has a better idea, or like, how can we get a hold of those better ideas? Because I don't think it's going to happen at this table right now. You know what I mean? So the protocol, so what's the protocol for like getting a group together to research, you know, traffic patterns, bus schedules, any kind of variables that are involved in order to throw ideas out there?
The think tank part, I think that I was talking to Cynthia
Yeah, we
about
talked a little bit about that. I actually had another thought, just kind of before we get to that point, because I guess what we've talked about is what a lot of the feedback that we've been getting is they want us to figure out how we can get both the schools together. And I wondered if like I said before, the thing that derailed that, you know, that initiative was the safety around it. And so I wondered whether by inviting our emergency management director to come to a school committee meeting to kind of outlay that for us all to hear. Because to be honest, like I wasn't the one that was walking the building with him when we had that discussion. That was with, you know, actually Keith and other members of the administration that did that. They never came to, we didn't speak with him directly ourselves. So, and we were relying on that. And that doesn't mean that we don't believe what our administration, but we're not hearing the same messaging. So I'm just wondering whether that would be helpful to kind of move us in, so that kind of help us figure out our direction. Does that make sense?
I think that seems like a good place to start.
I mean, I just feel like it's starting somewhere, because I feel like if we already know that that's not something that we can do based on whatever he has to say, I'm not assuming. I don't want to assume that. Whatever he has to say is what he'll have to say. But, and then kind of trying to figure out where we might go from there.
I think the next step, though, is that if he tells us, I fully expect him to tell us. I mean, even if he doesn't tell us, we already know what Mr. Boudet and Mr. I mean, like, we already know there are safety issues.
Right.
With, and I've said in the past, like, I'm not going to vote, like, 3 experts telling us that things are not safe. I'm not going to vote against that and say, oh, let's give it a try anyway.
Right.
But I think what we can do is that if there is some kind of committee looking into this, that we can figure out, all right, so how can we fix that? You know, is there a solution? I mean, maybe it costs $500,000. Maybe it's impossible. I have no idea. So I think we have to figure out, like, if that's the hurdle, if safety is the hurdle, and that is really the best option, trying to get those 2 schools, trying to get Placentino and Miller on the same schedule, then I think the community wants to know, so how much is it going to cost to fix that? Is it even possible? And how much would it cost? And maybe it's this crazy number that people will then say,
oh, I get it. Or,
no, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Right.
But I think that we need to do that next layer of due diligence. And, you know, and maybe it's a committee. I think it would have to have school committee members.
It has to. I mean,
so
yeah,
I think that not to put you guys on the spot, but I think, you know, possibly the newer folks would want to dive into that and see if, you know, first identify what the options are that are worth going back and uncovering for more due diligence. And, you know, just taking a systematic approach to it and figuring out, like, you know, at what point are we going to say we've had enough due diligence and let's either make a decision and, you know, maybe it's spend X amount of money, maybe it's not, I have no idea. But I think there has to be like a process.
So can I just suggest, Lisa, that I think safety.
Not it.
Safety is huge, but I want to really focus you back to the logistics, because money, I think, will be a big number. However, before you can even get to money, it's just, I think you need to look at, I would hypothesize we cannot logistically get 1,300 students, staff, buses, parents, all off campus and on campus at the same time. Even if we could do it safely, how much time will it take to get, you know, how much time are we going to lose on time on learning because they're going to be late to, you know, all those pieces. So that's like.
But what I'm saying is with the current configuration, we can't do that safely.
That's my point. So that's what I'm saying, the way it is right now.
I'm saying we need to figure out if you know, if it turns out that like the only ideal worth pursuing is, you know, as deemed by a committee of my peers, is, you know, having those 2 schools on the same schedule. And that may not be the only option worth, you know, doing more due diligence on. But if that is the only option, I think we need to figure out some kind of price tag and say, okay, we can reconfigure this, but this is what you have to go through to reconfigure.
I guess I'm just saying that before you get to price tag, you'd want to vet with the town. If we had unlimited funds to do this, and we come to that, a plan with it, would it even be possible to build new roads, to take things, I think you'd want to get through the logistics first, because the money is actually second to that.
I think it's third, actually,
Third,
because
yeah.
really, you're talking about...
Variance-wise, conservation.
Well, you're talking about the logistics of getting the people onto campus. There's also the academic component, which Dr. Kuska started going into, but you're also dealing with the issues with unified arts, which is going to be vast, and if you go down this path, there's a philosophical question we're not going to have tonight. We will discuss some other time, but there's a philosophical question on what you do with a unified arts teacher. And then there's the issue about lunch and trying to get all those children in and out, because the lunch schedules are going to have to spread out more than they would have in a typical day, because when you had a 45-minute gap, or much less now when it's an hour and a half gap, you have more flexibility with lunch.
Right.
When you're at the same time, your lunch time is going to be really odd.
Well, we offer 6 lunches to get, so because of the fact that they're on different time schedules, lunch starts at 10 o'clock.
15 or something.
At Miller, they get their 3 lunches through, and then the same staff that help with lunch for that, then help do lunch for, so you have 6 lunches, so there's no way to get those kids in without 6 lunches.
I'm not saying I think there's an easy answer. I'm not saying
No, but that's not saying the logistics is before the money is all.
I'm not saying miss something. I'm saying I think that the community is asking for more due diligence.
I'm just saying there's more hurdles before we get to money.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Can we brainstorm and identify tonight what some of those hurdles are? And I know it's unified arts. I'm hearing that it's lunch. There's safety concerns with the existing layout. Before we move to the 90-minute or 80-minute differential between the schools, when we were back at the 40-minute, did we have 6 lunches then, or did we have less lunches because
we were closer together, but we still had a similar lunch schedule.
We had 6, or we had 4 or 5?
I cannot tell off the top of my head. I don't want to misspeak here, because this is way too hot an issue for me to do that.
We'll be careful.
Yeah. But don't last 21 years by being dumb. The challenges with regards to, again, each one of these challenges is unique. And so, when you're saying like safety, the safety goes beyond that one level, because it's about access. And as I said to some of you, because I know some of you have talked to me about this, it's 18 to 20 buses, 200 staff members arriving at a similar time, not the same, but a very similar time. That will preclude parents from dropping off in the morning. Placentino uses the cafeteria for dismissal. Every one of the bused children is in that cafeteria, and it's nearly full. So do we now no longer do that? And at the end of the school day, we choose the Acton-Boxborough model, and we go find your bus, everybody. If that's the choice, that's the choice. But again, you won't necessarily have universal support from administrators thinking that's the safe way to do things, or what we would, or how we believe it should be done. So it's things such as that again, it's multiple hurdles, and within each hurdle is like little bumps as well. So I think I kind of view it as 3 major hurdles, which is traffic, of lunch, and of unified arts. But within each of those, there's pieces.
This is just a question for Keith. Who's the bus coordinator? Could we speak with the bus coordinator?
You are right now.
So I guess that begs another question. Why is it you? Because it used to not be your job, and I don't think you can afford a second full-time job, Keith. I don't think you have that bandwidth.
Wasn't the same thing.
It wasn't.
That doesn't seem
This
proper.
is not by plan. This is not, and it's not a full-time job. That's our former bus coordinator. Our former bus coordinator both drove for us and coordinated, so it actually worked very well. She retired, which you're allowed to do. Keep talking about bus things, okay, but get me closer. But she retired, and we had a plan for replacing her with actually another retiree who was going to work part-time. That didn't work out. And truthfully, that didn't work out at a very inopportune time for us. So I had to do a bunch of things during the busiest time of busing. So at some point, it just didn't make a lot of sense, and we're also transitioning our bus software to a new package. So to train somebody on the old one to train on the new, we are going to change that. So
So you're going to wait till the new software is
Correct,
in place?
correct. So, or it's going to be part of the process of putting a new piece of software in place. So it's while that's going to happen, that doesn't mean the new person's going to be well-suited or well-heated on the traffic patterns in Holliston, or, on how transportation has to work in Holliston. So there'll be a learning curve there as well. So how valuable a resource they are to this process, outside of giving you raw data, which I can do and I've done over the years, I'm not sure that position is going to resolve or be an asset, truthfully.
Then maybe a new person will have a fresh take and be able to give us some reorganization or think outside the box ideas that right now there's no one available to do. See, I don't think I'm not sure there's a lot of room. I thought the same thing, 3 years ago. And I think I sat down with Keith and looked at the software. I think you showed me the software. We sat in the office. I mean, they've already got every permutation, and the transportation study that we did right before COVID said, we're using our routes. Well, I'm not sure there's an answer there. There might be an answer somewhere else, but I think there needs to be I think part of the issue is you guys have to look at all the old files. We're gonna have to,
Absolutely.
I still have all my stuff. I think Stacy and Cynthia would probably rather eat a bug than revisit all of that, because they spent so much time on it. But I wasn't on
ad nauseam for a long time.
But I wasn't on the subcommittee, so but I still have the pile of stuff.
Theoretically, you'd have an easier time trying to have Rams and Miller go at the same time, because at least you have another set of roads to go, passages around the buildings, but you'd still have the gridlock with families. I'm not suggesting that, but to do that, you would probably have to eliminate buses for the high school. You know what I mean? So there's solutions, but they're not good solutions.
There's this misconception that if everyone took the bus, there wouldn't be a problem. We're never going to have a situation where everyone takes the bus. Because we keep asking, how many people are riding the bus? It's not a bus issue. And I think you have to talk about that again, Mr. Boudet, because...
Not a bus issue.
Well, you've been saying it for 3 years, and I do think that people still have that as a misunderstanding. It's not a bus ridership issue.
When we did the analysis of the routes, and not we hired a contractor to do the analysis of the routes. His basic summary was something along the lines of, if I was grading this as 100, you're like at 104. You're running your buses more efficiently than I could have ever planned. And it's because we had one person doing it, who has since retired, one person doing it who drove in this town for 25 years, knew every route, knew every house, and so, again, we still have very mature routes, even with new, neighborhoods coming into play and things like that. So and at some level, it's still going to take X amount of time either to get to Adams Street or from Adams Street, through traffic in the morning. It doesn't matter if I put 2 kids on that bus or 60 kids on that bus. It's still going to take X amount of time. And that's one of my limiting factors in this, is that, some of this is just, time.
Yeah, we don't want to have kids some places will put kids on a bus for an hour.
But I think there's a law, because our busing is inclusive as well, right? So
I don't know what you mean.
Sorry, so our special education students.
Can only be on for an hour.
Correct. Or I thought it was 40 minutes, you told me. All right, I thought it was 40 minutes.
So Keith, but just to that point as well, one thing we were curious, and you don't have to answer this tonight, you might need to research it. Ashland has the same times as us for pre-K to 2 and 3 to 5. The difference being their 3 to 5 school, it looks like, based on their website, and their website wasn't clear, all the bus schedules started at 7 a.m. And they have 17.
Do they only have one 3 to 5 school?
Yes.
Yes. I did speak with Mr. Adams the other day, and they implemented the change in start times pre-COVID, and I asked him how it went, but at that point, I think he told me it was 7:55, and then they went, with COVID, they changed to 7:30. He did tell me next year they're going to 7:40, because they're trying to, but he said he really hadn't had concerns from parents around some of the things that we've heard about. It just hasn't been.
But what Sid and I were looking at it, because we were like, if we could get the bus routes to start at 7, I think that would be even a huge improvement. So we were trying to figure out, how does Ashland do it where similar situation, 1 3 to 5 school, or are they just not putting accurate data on the website?
I don't know where their roots are.
Yeah.
You'd have to
I
know their
can't,
roots.
you know, and again, there may be more limiting factors. They may not have as many riders as we do.
Yeah.
Even though they have 17 buses. But I'm saying from the standpoint of they may have, again, more people who walk to the, I
Yeah.
can't tell you Ashland's situation because I know nothing about it.
Because their 3 to 5 school actually is, it's not on a main route, which may make the difference. I don't know, I was just curious.
If we turn
But it's
Woodland
also-
Street into a bus and pedestrian path, you know, that might help.
And it's also not attached to their pre-K2 building.
Yeah. No, it's not, right.
Right.
Okay, Dawn, fine.
Keith, do you have a sense of how many high schoolers ride the bus?
Off the top of my head, no. If I went back to my office, yes. So.
Okay, no, I just want to follow up on the, when you said high school in Placentino, is there any scenario where you have your existing Placentino buses and that we could do, I'm guessing that the high school ridership is significantly less than Miller or Rams, right?
It's not a volume issue. The issues we have are not volume.
It's getting to out of those places.
Inequity for students that can't not get transported to school if we, you know.
It's, and again, with the, what I mean by it's not a volume issue is, you know, I'm, at the high school, middle school run, my buses are full. Absolutely, there's no question. I have some buses that are absolutely full. But that's not, again, it's not what's holding us up here. You know what I mean? It's not what's slowing the process down, because those buses that are really full, I've got 10, 12, 14 kids at a bus stop. You know, it hurts us. The more we stop, the more it hurts us. There goes the fire chief right now.
Maybe he could just stop.
I was gonna say,
I know,
that
right?
just coincides, so over here. But if we had, a lot of those stops that are really full have really multiple students at a stop. So that, again, improves the efficiency of it, which is, again, something we do, which is why the person who evaluated thought very highly of ours. So while it takes X amount of, 2-3 seconds for each student to get on and get seated in a group of things, it takes us like 30 seconds to slow down a bus, open the door, close the door, and go again. And so you put those two factors together, and every time I stop, it really hurts our routes. Every time we pick up, every time a child gets on, it doesn't hurt us as much. So as my example there, so.
And we do need 40 minutes of difference between each school.
When we're having problems making our times now, because again, you can't just choose the bus that has the shortest route and why don't we just all do it that way? It's literally the one who takes the longest route, and that's what everybody has to play to, and that's go out to Adams Street, which I have to do 3 times a day. Now, I can alternate buses that do it, which is what we do now, but it's still, one bus is going to have that 40-minute route out to Adams Street and back on every run.
So if you recall, we adjusted the times this year. We were at 8:10 for middle and 8:15 for high school last year. And in so doing,
No, 8:10, 8:05. We should have switched it from 8:10 to 8:05.
We added 5 minutes.
Yeah, we backed it up. I'm saying last year we were at 8:10 from Rams, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we backed it up this year to 8:05.
Yes.
To give us 5 extra minutes to get up to the high school, because what was happening is that was causing it to be late sometimes for the next stop. And then at the end of the day, similarly, we added 5 extra minutes to Placentino just because the 2 schools were going together. We couldn't get the buses off campus up here, so the quicker we were getting them out of Adams to get them up here, to get them out of here, and that's why we added the 5 minutes, so we get them to Placentino, so the little ones aren't on the bus longer, too.
And that's actually an important concept there, because if you've ever been out here on Hollis Street during dismissal.
I can't get in or out.
And
And when we had the conversation about make the cars wait for the buses, some comments were
That didn't
made,
go
oh,
well.
we can't do that, Well,
But that's what you cause a ripple effect of now people have after-school jobs, or parents have, so now if they can't get out, they can't get to those, and that's why they choose to drive. And then that's the other piece of the gridlock, is that if we can't get people off Miller and Placentino, then they're going to not get home even longer and not get to their after-school events.
Yeah, what's the absolute latest we can start the high school? I mean, could we start at 8:20 or 8:25, or did you guys rule
Well, that's
that out?
the issue is even with where we are right now, we couldn't get, Placentino would have to be later. That's
We'd be pushing, if we moved the high school.
That would put them to
Right.
9:20.
9, I think it was
9:15.
We were at 8:55 start time at Placentino to 3:20 last year, and this year we're at 9 o'clock. We added the 5 minutes, 9 o'clock, because right now, where we are at the high school, they're already just
Those
making
kids
it.
wake up at 5:30. I remember my kindergartner getting up at like 5:30 in the morning. That's a
Couldn't we
long
switch?
morning for parents.
Couldn't we switch?
Switch
and
what?
Have the Placentino kids go earlier and Miller later?
That's a committee decision.
That brings up more childcare stuff, like it's already a childcare issue for Miller kids to be the first ones in their family home, but at least like theoretically, your 4th or 5th grader could stay home alone for half an hour to wait for an older sibling to come home from middle school, but not so a Placentino kid.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm not saying absolutely not, but I'm saying that's my main concern for that.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Amanda, when you were discussing, I think, almost some kind of task force, what did you envision? You're thinking school committee members and...
School committee members, I mean, and I'm just thinking like, there are folks who have done a lot of research on this, or there are folks whose jobs are better than my job. Like, I'm an expert on the teaching of math, but there are people in the community who are presumably traffic engineers, or bus drivers, or police officers, or someone whose expertise is more well-suited to logistical issues like this, or safety issues like this.
Maybe you could get someone that has that expertise, if they are doing that for work, that would volunteer their
Right,
time to do a
exactly.
traffic study to inform that, but
Right.
before you have the committee established.
That's probably a good idea, too. We did that before. I mean, when we were looking for getting somebody to do surveys, we were like, we have blind spots, and this is not our expertise. So
Yeah, it's
we
really
reached out to the
not.
community and said, is there someone that can help us with doing the surveying? And we got Belinda Hamlin to come and help us, and she helped us for a really long time. Shout out to Belinda Hamlin, so thank you. But that was really, but she came to our subcommittee as part of that, so it would be more of a subcommittee that would invite experts in, and that's what we were doing. I mean, when we invited Chris Landrigan and Judith Owens and other administrators from other, from other high schools to come talk to us about what they were doing, and, go ahead, Catherine.
So I think, we talked a little bit last meeting about the way that things have changed and the way that things are different now. And I know that there was an imperative before to not spend any money whatsoever. And I had a conversation with a member of the finance committee about this, about how everybody wants everything until they figure out they have to pay for it, and then they don't want anything. But there's, but this is something that is actually, I believe it is not good for our community the way that it is set up right now. Like, it's not good for our Miller kids to be getting up this early. It's not good for families. It's not good. The Placentino kids are barely getting there, often after 9 o'clock. The buses are rolling in after 9. They're not making it on time. They're not hitting their windows. This isn't good for us. It's not good for working families. It's not good for single parents. It's not good. So understanding that sort of theory that nobody wants to pay for something until they realize, that everybody wants anything until they realize they have to pay for it. Maybe we're at a place now where the landscape has shifted enough that people would be open to paying for something, whether it's a one-time, a capital issue, or... So that's the end of one paragraph. My other sentence is, I do think there's other possibilities if we are open to the idea of spending some money somewhere along the line, right? So I think it's an impossible task to try to put this together and say, make this massive shift to our town and spend nothing. Like, that's almost impossible, right? So...
Yeah, I think if that scenario existed, it would have been found by now.
If what scenario?
If like the free, no money scenario existed.
Right. So
it would have already been
like,
found.
So now that we know that there's, a degree of pain and suffering that's being withstood by the community, and we have this information that it's not working for at least 45% of the respondents to a survey. What would it look like to go back and re-examine this? And so is that a subcommittee? Is it a task force? I think that's part of what we're asking of the more seasoned members is what do we do? We can't know, as a committee, we can't know that this is not working for so many people and not move forward and try to do something. And I do think there's other ideas out there. I have some ideas. I just don't know when to say them or when's a good idea to share them. Or, I think that it's
right now with this agenda item.
No,
seriously, no, I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, so there's a access road that's off of Woodland Street. That's an easement that goes behind the schools, and I shared with you at the strategic planning meeting that I was very concerned. I don't like that being there. It's creepy, but it's town property and we have a right to use it. We could use that as another entrance it goes right into the back of the Miller parking lot. So what would that entail? How much would that cost? How would that ease the traffic patterns? Knowing that it's there, I know that we can use it. It's not drivable right now, but how much would it cost to make it drivable? And maybe that's what it would take, is to get a person from the community who knows this kind of stuff about what would it take to put a packed stone dirt road to the back of the lot.
Talking about the emergency access?
Behind where the preschoolers come through?
No. On Woodland Street, across, almost across the street from the 8 Arch Bridge, there's an easement. Remember when we were talking in our strategic planning focus group, and I said there's an easement back there and it's creepy and I don't like it. Does anybody know what I'm talking? Nobody knows.
I've never been there. I have no idea what
You can't even see it.
You don't even see it because it's so overgrown and there's a tree that fell down, but it's a public easement that goes to those woods behind Miller.
But doesn't that go, though, to the conservation land? There's a trail back there that walks near Factory Pond.
Right, but
But it goes the road goes to Woodland? I thought somebody owned that property.
it's a public easement that's owned by the town.
Okay.
And where does it
You
come
can
out?
see it from the
Right, where does it
arch,
come
right?
out, Catherine?
That there's a building there. There's where the
I think I know you would do.
where the pond is. There's the pond, and then there's the little waterfall, and then the 8 Arch Bridge, and there's that building with the big parking lot.
Yes.
Right next to that.
Right, yes, I think I know.
There's.
And then where do you think does that go all the way to the property at the Woodland campus?
It does. I've actually been hiking back there. It's a public access to the woods back there, which is when we were talking about school safety and stuff. I was like, I don't like that there's this very kind of secret space where people can walk in and out and nobody even knows it's there, right?
Where does it drop you out?
In
Miller.
In the back of the Miller parking lot.
So that might be a question for the Conservation Committee, because I certainly don't know anything about that.
So I looked it up a bit. I went through the maps and the deeds and that sort of stuff. But this is the sort of stuff that I feel like, spending no money, that certainly wasn't going to be able to happen. But if it was a one-time thing to just make a road, and now all of a sudden we have 2 access points to this campus, some of the safety issues could be dealt with.
And I think that is where the think tank, or as Amanda suggested, I think that's what I have been, even in the office hours, that's what the conversation I had with the parents, and that's what I told them, that I think it might be a good idea to look into having a community participation and having a group who could actually come up with such ideas. And lo and behold, we just have right here. So I think.
So let's make a task force. Here we go.
I think so. I mean, it's something which.
Okay,
worth
but I
looking
would
into.
like for you, the 3 of you, if you're able to be in charge of that, be that subcommittee that then, do you know what I mean? Because I just think it makes sense for you the school committee needs to have ownership of it, because then we drive the direction of it. So, and then I'm curious about whether or not it needs to be a full subcommittee, as if you're planning to do this throughout the whole next year, or is it something that you want to do targeted over the next 6 weeks? We're going to just do, we're going to interview all these different people. We're going to take a look at what that access road that you're talking about. Maybe we talk to the town administrator, we talk to Chief Cassidy, or whatever. I can give you, we can give a list of people you can speak to. They may not be able to. I know that, but I know, I'm just, okay, so maybe I'm being a little pie in the sky. I'm just saying that there's a lot of groundwork that's already been done. We spent years with all the other stuff, so we know all that. So it's more of a targeted, what do you want to do with it now, with the information, the questions you have now, and maybe it'll take you more than that. Does
it make sense to get started now and then revisit this before the end of the school year in terms of what the plan is for next year too, and also any reorganization that you do for it? Would that make sense to get started now with a group of 3, and with the ability to then reorganize or reassess in a few weeks?
I think so.
What's your thought?
I think so. I mean, it's definitely not a
And then,
6-week
so we
thing, but
do need to tag an administrator to support the effort. All subcommittees have to have one.
Joni.
So should you not have?
No, I'm definitely
It's too
not in.
late.
They're
so-
saying me, I'm like, no.
If there's a volunteer that would like to offer them their services for the purpose of
So can I
Mr.
say another
Boudet.
thing while they're fighting about this?
Huh?
While they're
not.
trying to make
No
comment.
fighting. I think
because
there's a logical
Right.
person.
Right.
It's not me.
Exactly. He knows that.
So keep this
He knows this already, as you can all tell.
I'd be starting
So,
fresh when we have
thank
some
you, Mr.
expertise
Boudet.
in
I
the
really
room.
appreciate your support.
Where's that job listing?
And anything else that.
So here's another thing.
Yes.
You are all going to hate this idea. So let me just tell you that you're going to hate me for a minute, but just think about this and run it. Let it settle for a little while. We have issues with the specials. We have issues with lunch. We have issues with traffic patterns, right? Because Miller and Placentino are connected. And we have issues with, we don't want to really move around the buses too much. We don't want the Miller kids with the Rams kids on the same bus. We don't want the Miller kids with the high school kids.
We could, legally.
We could.
We can do it.
We could.
We could put Placentino in the high school together. Sorry.
But think about this for a second.
Okay.
What if we physically switched Miller and Rams to be in their different spaces? I just said you're going to hate this idea, Keith.
Yes.
You have to listen first.
That's
It would be a very long-term solution, and I do not mean for next year. And it would take adjustment, and it would take money, and it would take, this is tier 2, right? We're not talking about small things, but it would fix the lunch issue. You could handle the unified arts issue, because if the Rams kids are still starting at a different time, then that frees up the cafeteria and the gym.
Right. And it's a creative idea.
It's a very creative idea.
The only thing you have to be careful about is
That's
the schools are configured, the elementary classrooms are certain size, built for a certain size versus secondary.
Like bathrooms. They're physically
Yeah.
built differently.
So
They're
I
just
wanted
physically
to
built
actually
differently.
ask that question even
question.
when we were having the walkthrough.
Yeah.
So this is exactly the thing that struck me when I was doing the walkthrough, because Miller and Adams, Rams are, like, again, they are 3 classes each, and I think I ran that idea with like Dawn, right? So so I was just thinking that, so I wanted to ask Keith that what is the size, and if it is even physically possible to switch, and if it would need modifications, but is it doable? Yes,
Obviously with
I
the
actually
cost.
had
There will
this
be
thing,
some
and the
cost.
cost.
It'd be a huge cost because you'd have to build science labs. It'd be a huge cost to Unified Arts because the Unified Arts are shared between the 2 buildings. So we'd lose common planning time is what we'd lose. I mean, I can't think of any other way that it would happen.
So can you explain that to us? I know, but could you
Okay.
explain the common planning time and that impact so we understand that better?
So first grade and I'm just picking a time, it's not the right time. First grade at 10 o'clock, they all have Unified Arts.
Right.
So we have 10 classes of first graders. Those 10 classes of first graders all go to Unified Arts together, to wellness, to music, to art, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I can't have my Unified Arts in 2 different schools because I need 10 of them to do first grade. it won't work, because at some point, those 10 are going to have to do Miller, and I can't have them traipsing back and forth between schools when, with regards to those schools being on the same schedule.
Are there any school districts similar to ours where the campus layout is different buildings and they do move back and forth? I mean, I know our administrators do that all the time, but I understand there's a loss of time associated with that, but we're not talking miles, right? We're
We're not talking miles, but
Some of it would be.
These are questions.
Yeah,
I know,
some of it
I-
would be certification, because if they're not, they're certified middle school or elementary, like some of
Yes.
your arts would be pre-K 8 or,
Yes.
but science is specific to elementary or middle school, so you wouldn't be able to share the staff that way because they wouldn't have the right certification.
And also, we're mandated to meet a specific time on learning requirement set by
That's true.
DESE. So if you're having a big amount of travel time, then that's harder to meet.
It's impactful.
Right.
And they have different planning period numbers, like the length of day is different, but also the teachers at the middle school have 82 minutes of planning time, 75 minutes at Miller, and 50 at Placentino. So if they're sharing staff, you can't work in a 41-minute blocks, and, it's just, it's.
So that switch is basically logistically and curriculum-wise, not something.
I just think the expenses would be tremendous with regards to having to build science labs, as well as the library's total, is much bigger in Adams than it is in Miller. Again, Miller was built for a middle school age child, size-wise, facilities-wise things, and you'd have to basically convert, you're not going to gut the school, obviously, that'd be an exaggeration, but there's going to be a big change.
But restrooms too.
Right, and I'm not sure,
Seriously.
and it's not a summer project.
Right.
Let me put that in place, too. It's not a summer project. We would
may
lose,
not be
we would lose
down
part of the
that-
school year
that rabbit
to have to
hole,
do that.
Okay, so suffice it to say, I think what we need to do is just approve, what do we want to call it, task force subcommittee to investigate school start time logistics with the assistance of the administration. Does that sound okay? And then you'll just report back to us.
So are we allowed to say, have a subcommittee and then invite members of the community and form a task force by ourselves, or do we need to bring it back?
No, they would have to be signed, like they would have to be sworn in by the town clerk.
And you'd have your regular open meetings where you
Right.
publish, you'd have your agenda. It would be like any other subcommittee.
Right.
Well, you said it was a task force, not a subcommittee.
Yeah.
But when you have
There's
three,
difference in that. There's a big difference, right?
but when you have 3 school committee members on it,
You can't,
are
it's
you-
considered a subcommittee
You
if there's
still have
three.
to notice and have an agenda with 3 sub.
So why don't we research it with the town clerk and then make
Okay.
a vote for next week and not try and figure this out at 9:30?
yeah.
and-
You're right, that's a good point.
Do we want it to just be 2 of us, so it's not a quorum?
It's not a quorum anyhow, you'd have to have 4 to be a quorum, so just because you have 3, I don't think that necessitates that it automatically is a subcommittee. You could have 3 members on the
Right, I guess it does matter whether we call it a subcommittee or a task force based on what the town deems. Let me check with Liz Green to
Because
find out.
the strategic planning, we two were there, so that was, what would you call it, a task force?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was a strategic planning committee, but I don't think it would have been problematic if 3 of you were on it, because you're not a quorum. It's just that we were
Yeah,
trying
so
to,
similar to strategic planning group.
I think we should just check with the town clerk before we go on
Right.
with this tonight.
None of us, I think nobody
Happy
was
to vote
sworn
you all
in.
on it, but just,
Yes.
let's
All
not.
right, so let me get back and find out from Liz, and then we can vote on it next time. Does that make sense? That doesn't preclude you from discussing and doing whatever you want to do. It's just I have to, before we formally.
And in terms of including community members, if that's the direction you want to go with it too, would it make sense to initially meet together and decide how you're going to select them,
Right.
and how big you want it to be,
Right.
and the scope of it, and then move on to that next step?
Yes. Is there a benefit to having a task force rather than a subcommittee, or?
Less heavy lifting
Yeah.
with regards to open meeting law.
Right.
Appreciably less.
A lot less.
Yeah, we want to be able to discuss more and not have the protocols. I believe.
Minutes are a
Minutes
nightmare.
Yeah,
or,
right.
like, and I think we have more flexible, but let's find out.
Let me find out.
and- Yeah,
Find
I
out
think
that,
that's-
options.
and I'll find out the options and we can discuss it next time.
Yeah, but it's
Okay.
definitely what, like, when I was thinking think tank, I was definitely thinking the kind that we had for strategic planning, which is also under the purview of school committee. So we had this whole entire group.
It wasn't, yes, you're right, but,
Yeah, for 22
yeah.
people, and so, but we did that. So, and it is something that was driven by a school committee, so I think, and that is why that whole thing came that day in my mind as well. So that is what I would be looking at, so.
okay,
Same with interviewing.
I'll get back.
So
Okay.
you were saying, Don, we can still like start talking to each other, but just not.
You can't make decisions.
Right, you can't make decisions. You're on your own can be saying, these are people that you can start making lists for yourself. This is people that I want to meet with, these are people that I want to talk to, these are reports that I want, whatever. And then in the meantime, I can also find my, my documents and give them to you.
And you could also do a little research on the
Yes.
differences between the subcommittee and the task force and the benefits and then what, and so that you're organizing in the way that you think you can be the most effective or also, get the job done sooner. And I think you should also think about, well, what works for the next 6 weeks and then what do we want it to look like next year? Because I'm really doubtful, it's going to take more than 6 weeks.
Right.
Sure, yeah, certainly.
Could take years.
I mean, baby steps.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
yes,
It's
exactly.
starting to.
I guess my only other issue, I guess just to follow up with what Dawn's saying, is that we can come back and talk about it in like 6 weeks, but then it's like, okay, we don't, what are we going to do for next year though? So like are there issues that we can try to address to mitigate for the issues that we're having right now? Do you get what I'm saying? Because if
We continue that discussion, though,
Right.
if we think there's ways we can help mitigate for next year. Should we keep this on our agenda and continue those conversations if there's effective steps we can take now while you continue to look at the future of this?
Or we'll just look for them to give us that direction as a reporting. Does that sound?
How do you want to approach that?
So things like the ideas that Cynthia had previously before COVID about like different shortened after-school availability of care for Miller kids, right? Remember all those things that you guys had decided when this was
Right,
initially
and
in
then
place?
it all fell apart
And then
in
COVID
the pandemic.
happened.
Do they want it? Do they need it?
Right.
Should we start trying to investigate? Should I go back to the Y and say, are you willing to create that program to provide that bridge care that would support families? Like, we already put everything together. What would it take to do that again? But do they even want it? Like, I don't know. That's what I was saying about what's changed, because that was something that was really was an issue that was presented to us as from the surveys that they sent to us saying childcare, we need something after school, there's so little.
I think Extended Day did address that.
They did, but I don't know how many people, it's a small number, and I'm not.
One request for transportation.
Right, okay, that's why I'm asking the question, so, okay.
And I feel like from the survey data, the most recent survey, that didn't come up as a big thing.
Yeah, I don't
The main thing that
necessarily.
came
It's
up
more
was the
about-
differences for working parents between Miller and Placentino and the earliness and the lack of sleep for Miller kids. I did not see much about childcare. So I don't know if COVID changed things.
Is there a bigger issue between those two, though?
Between
Between
sleeping and childcare?
between sleeping and the schools being so far apart in time? Is one 60, is
Does
it
one-
60/40 one way or the other?
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I could see different solutions, different potential solutions, depending on which was the 60 versus the 40.
Sleeping.
What would that be?
Put a potential solution for the lack of sleep.
Well, again, as I stated the last time we talked about this, an option is to, and I can't have people throw things at me, this is a public meeting, is to revert back to the original way we were, which remedies that. It's to move Miller and/or Placentino later. I mean, there are solutions that would mitigate the sleeping issue of doing what Dr. Cusker was suggesting, of manipulating different ways of putting different schools together as opposed to always high school and middle school. You would look at things differently for a sleeping issue possibly, as opposed to the two schools should be as close to the same start time as possible. And I'm just saying that I just think that any potential solution may be better for one of those solutions than the other, that's all. Because if it's getting the two schools together, move Placentino to Miller, move high school, middle school to last.
Right.
I mean, done.
So it's my personal opinion, and obviously I would love people to disagree with me if you do, that we should be careful about trying to, no, I'm going to start that sentence over. I think first we have to take care of the kids, and then the next level is the 90-minute split is 80-minute split, whatever, is really, really difficult. But my biggest concern is that these Miller kids are tired, and they're walking into school like zombies, and they're not eating breakfast because they're not hungry. You know, like that to me that should be a higher priority for the school committee to deal with the students' needs, because if they're not ready to learn when they get there, then that's ours, right? The way that, then the second thing is the childcare. And believe me, I am on that page. Like, the childcare is a huge obstacle. But I think that, and I'm interested in what you all think, but I think that first we deal with the sleep issue, because I think that's more of our purview than the family issues.
And I am curious, and that's why I reached out to Mr. Adams in Ashland to say, are you having reports from your families about the sleeplessness? And he said, no, we have not. So I'm just, if truly sleeplessness is that the time is the issue for the sleeplessness problem, then how come it's not happening in Ashland? And I'm not saying it's not, maybe he doesn't know for sure,
Right.
but he's not hearing that. And when they went from 7:55, then they went to 7:30, he said that has not been their issue. So I don't,
They were already dropped off at 7:50. They already
They did
dropped.
an impact survey?
I'm not sure about this, he didn't mention a survey, but he said this has been going on since 2016. And then with COVID, they adjusted to the 7:30, and like it was, no one missed a beat. Do you know what I'm saying? It was
So
like,
it could be also that their activities might not be running that late like it does in Holliston,
The what?
because activities.
After-school activities.
Right, after-school activities, because many of the Miller students, they actually end up practicing with Rams. And the carpooling also, like the parents of Placentino kids pick up Miller kids and take them to.
but our
there's
students do games with Ashland and things
And they
like
do
that.
the same club teams and the same dance classes and the same art classes and the same karate classes as the other towns.
The question that I had for him is whether it was because it was implemented prior to COVID and it was already well-run when they made that adjustment from 7:55 to 7:30, was that why it was not impactful? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
they also already dropping them off at 7:25. It was just that they used to have that, who was it?
Like wraparound
They used to
care
have this
before.
wraparound care where they could drop them, the buses brought them there at 7:25, but they had like a half an hour. I think it started at 7:50 or whatever. And that's why.
Do they have second, just like us, do they have elementary separated
so
out?
7:30
Same.
for grade 3 to 5 and 9 o'clock for pre-K 2.
I'm sorry, Cynthia, what did you say? They dropped off at 7:25, but they started at 7:50?
They still started at 7:50, yeah. They had like this care beforehand. And I guess with staffing issues, that was probably what made them have to switch it back instead of like saying, we're just going to start at that time. So they didn't have the additional staff.
And this is where, like, I've struggled with, because we implemented during a nightmarish pandemic, it was hard to, it would be wonderful if we had implemented before that, to then we would know I mean, clearly both were impactful, right? So it's just kind of a comedy of Murphy's Law, I guess, in this situation, but.
Yeah, I guess what many of us saw, though, is in October of 2019, prior to the pandemic, at the public forum, we heard, many of these same concerns about what that would look like, how that would impact families. And I think it is, here we are in May of 2022, and many of those families, the ones that would have been concerned in October 2019, now have kids that are out of Miller, and we hear it from new families too. So I don't know that it's the implementation after the pandemic started, but I will say that we're hearing some of the same concerns that we heard in the fall of 2019 in terms of how it would impact families.
No, I don't disagree with that. I'm just, it begs the question, are parents in Ashland seeing the same issue with sleeplessness? Because sleeplessness is sleeplessness. If kids are tired, they're tired. If it's an issue that 7:30 is too young for children to start, then why has that not come up there? That's all. I'm trying to figure out the why behind that.
Well, there is research that says it's too early for these kids to start. But the woman who came to speak, she focused on adolescents and not younger kids. And a lot of that is new. It came out in 2019, and it wasn't her research, so she didn't talk about that. And I actually asked that question at the forum, and she didn't answer. She refused to respond. So, I mean, if that's, it is too early. 7:30 is too early for these kids.
And I would love both schools on the same time. I just know logistically we can't do it with the way it is, so
Also,
with them attached.
did Ashland ever do a survey?
I don't think they did. I
They
just
did
reached
not.
out to Lori, but I'm pretty certain they didn't.
Nope.
Because I remember saying to Jim at a conference, like, how did
Yeah.
you pull that off without any issue? And why are we having such an issue? And he's like, I did what was right for the kids. And I said, you know, he's like, the TVL league, he said, they have to go by our schedule. And I was like, that's really,
Yeah, he just came in and.
I don't know what the
that's I
word,
remember.
but I was like,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
I have to say this, though, that Ashland parents in general, we have a lot of friends in there, they are pretty happy with the way schools are there. So I don't know if there's a whole entire well-being factor. They do like what their kids do in school. That's what the feeling I've had whenever I've spoken with them. The families who have moved from Ashland to Holliston are not very happy. So
That's not what the feedback I've had.
really, I mean, I've had
Well, I
that
also think
feedback.
it's dangerous to talk.
Yeah, we shouldn't do
about
that.
it.
Yes, I
Because
agree
I've
with
heard
that.
from a teacher in Ashland that the kids are a disaster and they hate it. So
Yeah.
It's hard, right, you can.
Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
like
We
I think
cannot
it's dangerous to kind of go
justify
down that road of what did you hear, what did you hear?
Exactly.
I don't know that,
So I don't know, but again, it's
Okay,
really.
so in the interest of time, because we still have some things to get through, we will just talk about this at our next meeting. I'll find out some information and we'll go from there, okay?
Thank you.
All right. We are going to move on to new business. So established last day of school. Dr. Kuska.
The calendar in the folder.
I have it here.
So we had the two two inclement weather days. One was electrical, wasn't it? We had, no,
they're both snow.
snow?
They were both
Sorry.
snow.
That was the
That was
year.
last year.
Yeah, exactly.
In October, when we had
Yes.
inclement weather.
Nope.
So we were originally scheduled to end on June 22nd. We would be ending this year with those two inclement weather days on June 24th, if you so vote.
And that's a half day on June 24th.
I hate it, but I will make a motion to approve it.
Would you rather have us
Seconded by
take a day off
Lisa.
on Friday and go to Monday?
Stop. Don't say things like that.
By Stacy.
Okay, moved by Stacy, seconded by all in favor. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to school choice seats. Mr. Boudet, you're up.
Ma'am.
Please.
Okay. So, school choice,
Okay.
our annual event, and I just lost all my notes.
Oh, no.
We won't do it.
No, it's important.
Usually
Just brief.
School choice. School choice law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 76, Section 12B. Just a quick summary of it. All schools are assumed to participate unless a vote of the school committee does not make it available. So if you don't vote, every grade, every seat is open. We're an open door. The sending town, remember, pay attention to words, the sending town pays the receiving school district 75% of their average cost per pupil up to a maximum of $5,000 plus a special ed increment if the child's on an IEP. We've been at that $5,000 level, 75% of our number, 5,000, we've been there for 15 years, so.
Why haven't they changed that?
It's because they don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. I mean, realistically, I've spoken to the state about this, and, you know, so they make it 6,000 instead of 5, and a whole bunch of towns cry. They're not trying to harm towns. The reason they do it from the town to the schools, that they're trying to encourage the towns to support their schools. That's all. So that's why it's town to school, not town to town or school to school.
$5,000 is the maximum. Every district.
Presumably
Yes.
it's the better
Yeah,
for
every district's
schools
above that
are
amount
getting
now.
it, So they don't need more money.
The school committee votes to open seats. We don't, you do. You can be very specific or very general. You can say 4th, 3rd grade seats, or you can say specifically in the places that they're going to go. Preferences can only be given to siblings of current school choice students. So we have a number of school choice students who are here. One of their siblings, one of the parents decides that they like to have another one of their children come here. Again, they're known as a sibling. And again, we put the siblings ahead because truthfully, we try to keep families together. I mean, we're nothing if not a familiar school district, so. And the child must be a non-resident. So you can't get school choice if you're currently a resident of Holliston, so you had to have left. Transportation is responsibility of the parent. We don't transport those students, that's not part of the deal. We do have,
However.
we
I was
do
like,
have,
hold on.
easy, we do
Thought I
have,
was about to jump on.
we do have policy that now allows us to do that. We have not taken advantage of it yet, because first, we haven't gotten any requests. COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench into that as well.
It could generate revenue. Let's say you're in Milford and you want to take the bus and there's a spot on the bus, why not?
And the policy, the school committee policy tells us we can tell you what stop to go to, et cetera, et cetera. We can determine a fee, could be higher, could be lower.
Picking the Milford kid up first, obviously, before picking up
on
the
existing routes.
It'd be on the existing route. I'm not going to Milford.
Yeah, no, we're not driving to Milford. Yeah.
We are, they would have to get their child to the Holliston border at a stop that we determine.
Right.
So I wouldn't put them on a full bus, I would put them on an empty bus at a stop that makes sense. I'm not going to create stops, it's,
Well, not
you know.
empty, but not as full, let's put it that way.
Is that true?
Once a child is enrolled as a school choice student, they do not need to reapply. Many people think they have to apply every year. They don't. It's once you're in, you're in. And in fact, and I say this to people, in some ways, a school choice student actually has more rights to come to school in Holliston than any of your children do. Because if you move away, you no longer have rights to go to school here. They can move anywhere in the Commonwealth, and they still have a right to go to school here. Because once they're in a school choice, they're in a school choice. They're not attached to their town.
Interesting. Yeah.
Our school choice history. This is contained in your packet. It just goes through, since we started the school choice program in 1993, right through 2022. We've had a high of 297 students in 1995, and if you look over the last 4, 5, 7 years, we've been gradually going down. Most of that truthfully has been due to the fact that we're out of space, classroom space in Placentino Miller, where more parents have an interest in having their children go younger before they build up relationships in school with other people, and, you know, so our two biggest pots of students is usually kindergarten and 9th grade.
And we didn't take new.
This year it
We
is.
didn't take school choice students this last year either, right? We took some.
We did.
But we took
We
only
did.
siblings though,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Correct.
Because kindergarten was the
Yeah,
highest.
right,
it was huge,
Right.
yeah.
So, again, that report's in your packet. Rationale, this is also in your packet. I know it's late, so I don't want to go too far. I'll do a quick summary. What I do for this is I take out all the school choice students that we currently have. Okay, so I'm taking out, I take all those school choice students out. As you can see, that's in the choice enrollment. So that gives us a new class size. I then take the money that's attached to those students out. And we would lose 11 teachers in that process. And in every grade, except for at the high school, we actually have class size would be higher if we didn't have school choice. And at the high school, it would be about 3/10 of a student lower. So it's, again, it's something that actually, the way that we manage it, it actually truthfully lowers class size. I know it doesn't seem intuitive that way, but it actually does, because when you manage the heck out of it, you know, it's what you do. School choice process, very simple. I meet with the principals throughout the budget process, determine available seats. We run an ad in the newspaper to generate interest. A proposal is made to the school committee to create seats. You vote on those open seats, as we've discussed earlier. We collect applications and hold a lottery. Town meeting votes on the budget. If it's successful, we offer the seats. Someone applies after the initial lottery, it ends up being on a first-come, first-served basis. And before November, if needed, I should say, we conduct a second lottery for any unfilled seats. Inside your package is class size. I'm not going to review that. That's where our current class size is in 2022, and the projected for 2023 is there as well. The recommendation I have, and then in my memo, we had 63 requests this year, which is up, was it 14? 14 from last year. So that's actually a good sign. Again, last year, between being kind of a pandemic year and kind of, truthfully, we didn't offer seats in the right spot either, we ended up not having as much interest. But it's good to see that. It's saying that we're still strong, at least compared to our neighbors who do seem to like it here. So in reviewing my projections, or reviewing the projections, my recommendation would be 10 high school seats. We had 22 applicants. And we generalized the high school seats just because I'd be saying 4 here, and I might be asking you to then change it. Desi was fine with us saying 10 high school seats. 1 8th grade seat, there's 1 applicant. 1 7th grade seat, there is 1 applicant. 2 6th grade seats, there were 6 applicants, 1 sibling is there. So I would like to do 2 seats there. 2 seats in 4th grade with 2 applicants, 2 seats in 3rd grade with 4 applicants, 2 seats in 2nd grade with 2 applicants, and 7 seats for the 19 applicants. Those 7 seats are sibling seats. We had 7 siblings, and again, this is my plea to kind of keep families together.
Great.
It's just something I believe in. It's also 2 French immersion seats as part of this, because we do have 2 openings. We do have 2 open French immersion seats, and 2 siblings who requested.
Oh, that's perfect.
We have 2. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can't remember.
We didn't need to do
an open French
we didn't need to do a lot of.
No, there was no, right. So we have 2 openings, 2 siblings are interested, so it's kind of kismet in the way that feels. And the reason I want to do it as sibling seats, just because this way, if they don't take it, it doesn't leave an opening then. What we would choose to do then is give some more time to a Holliston resident, and then if a period of time passed, I would come back to you sometime this summer possibly and ask for another seat to be opened up. But, again, in our first tranche of students coming through, we had the 2 open seats. So at this point in time, and our projected enrollment for kindergarten right now is 200. That's assuming every student that has applied already. We have a number of students who are on the we have a number of children who are on, not students yet because they haven't registered. We have a number of children who are on the census but have not registered. We're chasing them down. They're not all in town. People move and, again, the census is from last year, so people do move away. Some people choose not to have their children come to kindergarten. So again, but we do think that may be more likely to come now that we're full day as well, because some parents with daycare would put them in a private kindergarten because they would get daycare on the other end of it. So we think that number is going to fill out, and we also reserve space for 10 people to move in over the summer. So that's part of our number. So Dr. Slaney and I have sat down and gone over this a number of times, and I guess I'll take questions.
Okay. Lisa, go ahead.
The new class size in 5th grade is 27? That sounds very high.
Is that the class size without
I think you're looking at the
school choice?
without school choice instead.
There's no school choice.
No, I'm
for
looking
fifth
at new class size.
There's no recommendation for school choice for 5th grade.
We're not adding any then.
Right, or there are no applicants then either?
Don't have any. Which page you on?
Page 3 of 4.
Class size with.
Oh, it says without school choice at the top, but then it says new class size.
That's a formula issue. It's obviously not that, because she had 1 kid. I'm not getting to there, so.
Right.
But that's also the calculation of the rationale. Oh, that's why, it's because the calculation rationale. If I took a teacher away, you're looking at the rationale one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, without.
Yes,
So we're not gonna have a 27.
Yes, no.
Thank
Yes,
you very
yes.
much.
Nope, sorry.
Those don't mean within our guidelines.
Yep.
Go ahead, Catherine, and then Dawn.
How do you account for, I would imagine in 9th grade, some students decide to go to private school?
Norfolk Aggie?
No, private school.
Norfolk Aggie. It may not be a private school, but Norfolk Aggie is an example of why we have 8th graders that don't make it to 9th. I've already know 8 who aren't going to go from 8th to 9th.
So my question is, how do you account for the students you don't know about yet that are going to go to Zavarian and?
What I do is I track Holliston enrollment only students in going from, and I've tracked it for the last 15 years, going from 8th to 9th grade. What I notice is that really a 5-year trend is the most accurate. So I look at the last 5 years of matriculation rates, and I then make an adjustment. I do that in every grade along the way. So actually, my numbers in 1st grade may actually be a little bit high because of the number of kindergartners because we were full day that came as opposed to didn't come. So, do you know what I'm saying? So I may have to do a manual adjustment going forward for kindergarten to first grade, because normally our matriculation rate was 106% or something like that. So it may be closer to like 100 or 101% going forward. But for high school, I think it's 6% down is what we lose, 6% of our students. So
And that's pretty consistent, the 6%.
we've had years where it's been 12, so yes.
12%?
Yes. That's been our highest over the years.
Dawn?
And Keith, I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure. You'll open up this lottery, and will all 22 applicants be assigned a number?
Yes.
So that if the first 10, if people might still reject, right? So we still have
Shoppers.
backups. Yeah, shoppers, people who've applied to 3 different schools, but we
Yes.
have backups.
Yes.
So hopefully we can get to this, this whole number of 27.
And
right?
again, our
27.
Our fill rate in high school is probably about 40%.
Right.
So do I think I'm going to fill that all 10 seats get filled? By numbers wise, it'll probably be 9.
Okay.
But again, this is why, again, where I open up this many seats in high school, because you do get the shoppers, so.
And then my next question was, we have 19 applicants for kindergarten, and they're probably going to be with us for a long time, too.
Yep.
Is there, what does it look like if we open up 8 or 9 or 10? Or do we then get into?
The 7 pushes us above your guidelines, slightly above your guidelines.
That's what I'm trying to find out.
And so this is a number that both Dr. Slaney and I recommended to her. She looked at, we talked about it, she looked at again, we talked again, and she went to. I will say that again, we have the opportunity to come back if some people turn it down, or if, for all we know, again, some of the children, some of that 22 of that have not made it from census really who are on the census aren't even in town any longer. So we keep working the numbers.
With
This
some
is,
flexibility, we could come back in July or August and open this up again?
you could do it, well, I can't do it next meeting, I won't be here. The June meeting, we could, certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Is your presentation 15 years old? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
No, but I've been using.
You've been
I've been
using it
using
for 8 years.
It was the first thing I ever did in Prezi, yes. So,
Yep.
I'm
have seen
impressed
all
you were
8 of them.
using Prezi 8 years ago.
I was a tech director then,
There you
too.
go.
You're a Renaissance
Right.
man.
Okay. So if there's no other questions, I would like to, oh, sorry, Minnie, go ahead. I didn't see your hand.
No, that's okay. So are these numbers that you have computed, are these going to be the final numbers we are going into fall?
Oh, no. People come and go all the time. So, there's not a month that my enrollment numbers don't change. If I reported enrollment to you monthly, which I don't want to do, but if I had to do that monthly, it would be a different number every month.
So the school choice numbers could change even from now?
Well, the school choice, what you do is you're setting the maximum number of students that could be attending through the school choice program. Could be less if people turn it down. When some of these grades where I said I have 1 opening and 1 applicant, if they don't come, I've got none. So, and again, for me, from a budgetary standpoint, I'd really like to get, how many kids am I losing? It was 9?
Yeah.
9 graduates. I want to get 9 of these 27 here, which I'm hoping the 7 will pretty much lock that in for me,
Right.
so.
And in kindergarten, we also get a lot of move-ins during the summer often, so we have to leave a certain amount of wiggle room to allow for that. Otherwise, we would go way over our guidelines.
Yeah. So again, we're at a comfortable place right now.
We can readjust it later
Right.
if we can.
It's tougher to go down. Once we can't go down once we've accepted the 7 and they've agreed to come. They're here, so.
Right, okay.
So is there a difference between what we earned from school choice last year to this year?
Yes, we are way down. In fact, I lowered, we've had this downward trend, as you can tell. I lowered the offset that we use for school choice. It's called an offset. We offset expenses with it. Actually, I lowered it in the budget by $160,000.
How many did we end up taking last year? How many new school choice?
You 3?
Yeah, I was like
3 or
under
4.
5.
But we opened up much more than that.
No, we didn't.
We didn't.
No.
I thought
Was it a little more? I can't remember off the top of my
we did
head.
a second opening. I know that.
Yes, we did, you're right. The second,
Definitely went
initially we did
June.
none, you're right. Initially
Yeah, we did none because we were
Right.
concerned about
In
this,
June,
about
it was the
COVID.
June one.
That's right, and then we
Right.
came back again and we wanted to get the siblings in, and that was, we cut off just the
Right.
siblings, that's
And-
right.
And
Right.
so you could just see from the numbers going down, and again, you're right, we'd rather get a kindergarten child in because we have 13 grades of school
Right.
choice. I mean, 13 years, excuse me, of school choice, so it's much better for us in that scenario. That being said, it's, you've seen, if you look there, we have years we go up and down and we go, so it's all going to depend on where our enrollment is, on whether how often we use this program, so. And just to go to Minnie's point, a big number that dropped off is we had one student who was actually in an out-of-district placement. That was part of our school choice numbers. The out-of-district placement didn't cost appreciably more than what we were getting credit for him being in district. But him being out of district, it was about $65,000 of school choice we lost through that student alone, so.
When a student comes here from another town and
Yep.
then they get an out-of-district placement, do we pay for that placement? Or does
And then
their-
the town pays us. It ends up being, it's cost neutral.
No, I'm just saying, like, does it come from their town?
Yes.
Or does it come from us? It comes from
Well,
their town.
it comes from us, their town pays us for that.
Right, okay.
It's cost neutral.
And what happens when the child moves to our district? Then that goes away and
Then
they.
right, yes.
So then we just.
So we lose the school choice going forward. And that's happened a number of times over the years where, parents see, hey, we're having a good time in Holliston. Maybe, I have friends here now. They got their best friend, blah, 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 and they move into town. We probably, without exaggerating, at least one a year, sometimes as many as 2 or 3 we lose a year through that, so.
Okay. So with that, I would like a motion to approve the 27 school choice seats as discussed with Mr. Boudet.
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Stacy.
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Stacy. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay. And now we will go to, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Newsletter. We are at the end here.
Yeah, this is really short because the only new information is the first 2 paragraphs. And sorry it's so late, but we just voted on this yesterday.
Yep.
So it's really just these first 2 paragraphs. Town meeting starts Monday, May 9th at 7 p.m. at the high school auditorium, and we encourage you to attend and support the schools. Our operating and capital budget requests for next year, fiscal year 2023, are included in the town meeting warrant, and then I just linked to the warrant.
Okay.
The school committee, so this is the new part. The school committee voted to reduce our operating budget recommendation for fiscal year 2023 to 30, hopefully I got the number right. 38,845, et cetera. That's a 4.71% increase over the current year. For those of you following closely, our original recommendation voted in March was about $159,000 higher, but since then, we have received more information that allows us to lower our ask. We have identified some savings in staff attrition and software, while also getting the news that we have 1 less vocational student requiring tuition. That's it. Everything else below that is straight from our previous newsletter, because we had already reported on the capital budget.
Okay.
And that's it. That's literally all I did.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, good.
This is
Good.
good.
Thank you.
Do we want to end with anything capitalized, bold, support our budget? Just another reminder at the very end.
Sure.
Please support our budget on May 9th, 7
7
p.m.
p.m.
at the Holliston High School Auditorium. Big caps, bold letters. And this will go out tomorrow, right? So that people can plan for Monday?
Dan's not in the office tomorrow, so I need to.
Would it go out then on Monday? What's our plan?
Oh, yeah. What can we,
It
how can
has
we
to
get it
go
out before town meeting?
Before,
If
certainly
Dan's not
before
around.
Monday afternoon, if we can.
Can Dan do it on Monday?
What's that?
You want to send
The newsletter, can it go out on Monday? Is Dan here on Monday?
It really needs to go
I
out.
don't think he's here on Monday.
No.
Let me look.
He's out for a
Okay.
few days. But we'll get it out.
He's not here
Send it
Monday.
to Keith and I, and we'll.
We'll get it out.
Figure it out.
Somebody will figure out how to get it out. Okay. So I would entertain a motion.
Before Monday or on Monday?
Well, ideally tomorrow, sorry. but-
So that people are prepared to come and vote on Monday.
Well, no, I'm saying, no, that's fine. I just,
Thank you.
big thing for Desi tomorrow, that's all, so it's okay. I'll just go back to my office now.
Lisa's going to send it right now, so, okay.
I can send it right now.
Move to approve the newsletter
Thank you.
as just as presented.
Amended or
this
presented,
evening.
yep.
Second by Dawn. That was
All in
Dawn.
favor? And that carries, okay. So I have no other items of information. Our next meeting is town meeting. School committee, we are going to be meeting at 6:30. Oh, actually, we don't have to. Oh, well, let's do it anyway. We're going to meet at 6:30.
Yeah, we should.
We're already posted. Let's just do it just in case. At the library. Here.
Well, they're having a public hearing at 6:30, the planning board.
Oh. So we'll meet in the.
The planning board is having a public hearing at 6:30 on Monday here.
What is it on town meeting?
Oh, yeah, they have the library.
Because it's about the citizens petition.
Okay, yeah,
Do you
all
guys
right.
pay attention to?
Yeah, I did. I heard that. I just,
So
didn't
my
register why
question
they would
was,
do that.
where are we meeting?
We can still meet here.
Okay.
We'll still be here. It's a library. We meet over a corner.
Okay.
We are.
It's an executive session, right?
It's a big
No, it's not.
It's a school committee meeting?
Yes, we're meeting, school committee meeting.
It's just, we're going to use that.
We're just
time
going to
talk
review
about
over the slides, the presentation, and then we're going to go in and we'll adjourn. I'll make a motion that it'll adjourn when the town meeting is over. You know what I'm saying? So we just have to do that because we have to convene and then, okay. I do have, and our next meeting after that is May 19th, where we'll talk about superintendent evaluation and I don't remember what else. It's okay. We will have executive session, so I would entertain a
Public comment? Are
motion.
you going to do public comment?
I already asked for public comment
you did?
before. I did.
Oh, I missed it.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay, we're just making sure.
I
Okay.
did ask for public comment.
All right.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining discussion regarding a leave of absence from which we will not return.
Moved by Stacy.
Seconded.
Moved by Stacy, seconded by Minnie. All in favor? That carries.
Roll
All right.
call.
Oh, shoot, that's right. Into executive sessions, roll call. So Ms. Bigelow.
Yes.
Minnie Gupta, Ms. Gupta, sorry. Dr. Savard.
Yes.
Ms. Koshin.
Yes.
Ms. Raffi.
Yes.
Ms. Naborski.
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik, yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Have a good night, and please come to town meeting on Monday, May 9th at 7 PM in the high school.